Pledge of Allegiance, which will be led by Mr. Bob Kelly.
Place your hand on your heart. Repeat. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Karen, please call the roll.
Director Dixon?
Here.
Director Mishler?
Here.
Director Magner? Here. Director Kelly? Here. Chairman Malloy?
Here. Okay. Item 4, amendments to the agenda.
Yes, need to pull item C,
Is that what number?
8C.
8C.
We'll bring that back in October.
Second page of the agenda near the bottom. Okay, anything else? No? Do I have a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
So moved.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Director Magner?
Aye.
Director Kelly?
Aye.
Director Dixon?
Aye.
Director Mishler?
Aye.
Chairman Malloy?
Aye. Agenda is approved 5-0. Item 5, presentations. We'll start with district highlights. Caitlin.
Clicker?
Can't present without a clicker.
We can wing it. Good evening, Chairman Malloy and members of the board. I am Caitlin, the Recreation Coordinator. Tonight I will be presenting district highlights and spotlight. Okay. So we are starting with the Aquatic Center. They had a busy summer with Pirate Mermaid, water polo, and junior guard camps. They had 10 weeks of full lessons where they served over 1,000 participants. Lessons were taught in the morning, evenings, and on Saturdays. They have just concluded their annual maintenance. Sorry. Go to the next slide. There we go. They just concluded their annual maintenance and cleaning and are ready to start fall swim lessons on September 15th for Saturday and September 17th for the weekday. And they're continuing every 2 weeks until November 20th. The Aquatic Center has contracted with Sarah Richardson to add synchronized swimming classes to the pool on Mondays and Wednesdays evenings. Okay. Moving to the Senior Center. Today they hosted a Hawaiian barbecue lunch and the showing of The Post. Lunch was sponsored by Advantage Plus Caregivers, where they served 60 members of our senior community. Next month's movie on October 4th will be Murder on the Orient Express. And it's sponsored by Comfort Keepers and Mission Home Health. And they're doing a fried chicken lunch for $5. Make sure you reserve your seat today. Upcoming seminars they have. Exploring Tuscany on Tuesday, September 18th at 1 p.m. Learn about the 9-day excursion to the beautiful Tuscany, Italy in April. Also, Social Security colored letters and what they mean to you will be Thursday, September 20th, where you can learn about the new Medicare card and Medicare benefits. The seniors have some wonderful travel opportunities this fall. On Thursday, October 25th, you can reserve your seat for a live taping of The Wheel of Fortune and lunch at the Marmalade Cafe, only $94 a person. Or if you want to test your fortune, for $35, you can join us to our trip to Pechanga Casino on November 8th. Limited seating and spots fill quickly, so make sure you sign up today. Lastly, the Senior Center is hosting their community rummage sale on Saturday, October 13th from 1 to 7 p.m. Reserve your spot or spots today. 1 parking space for $25, 2 for $45, and 3 for $65. Okay, moving on to our special events. We hosted our end of summer camp out on August 17th at Camarillo Grove Park, where crowds were entertained by a juggling and dance performances. There is a rock wall hot dog hamburger dinner cooked by the Moose Lodge and breakfast of pastries, fruit, coffee, and juice. The movie Coco was shown with an all-time favorite dessert of s'mores. This year we saw 129 attendees with the revenue of just over $2,000 and expenses of $7,770. With fall, that means Halloween in the park is just around the corner. Reminder, this free family event includes Trick or Treat Village, costume contest, wildlife presentation, and we want to remind everybody the Christmas parade in Santa's Village is back again this year. We are now accepting parade and vendor applications. We want you to come enjoy holiday shopping, live music, and see our Grand Marshal, Anthony Davis. Moving on to sports. The USA Softball Western Nationals were hosted at Mission Oak and Pleasant Valley Fields the week of July 30th. We had 75 teams in the 10U and 12U division. Camarillo took 9th in the 10U and 17th in the 12U. Now, moving into my specialty, camps and classes. Our summer camps have ended. Camp Fantastic had an average of 45 campers a day, meeting our budget goal set in April, May this year. We have a couple of Thanksgiving and winter camps being offered this fall. Our K-9 classes start October 11th. We have several new art and music classes from Zentangled to art history to ukulele. Our health and wellness classes. We have a variety of health and wellness classes from yoga, Pilates, Tai Chi, and Zumba, and are looking to expand these offerings starting January 2019. In line with the budget goal of bringing on more charter schools, we have increased our offering of classes to meet educational needs of home and charter school children. We're asking you to call PVRPD today to see the charters we partner with. Moving into outdoor education, we have some amazing hikes this fall, and we are now offering field trips to Camarillo Grove Park. Our field trips align with the Common Core standards, and we currently already have one field trip booked for later this month with 60 kindergartners. Our kinder music classes are happening Tuesday, Wednesday, Fridays, and Saturdays. They range from 3 to 5 months old. And our staff taught classes of Dos Caminos are running 5 days a week and doing well. Our special interest classes for cooking this fall go from low sugar Halloween party to healthy food gifts in a jar, geared towards our homeschool students and our senior population. We have a new class called Money Munch Kids, which is where students learn basic money skills and good money habits young. We're continuing to offer a variety of sport classes from tennis, basketball, soccer, pickleball, and golf. Okay, District Spotlight. The District Spotlight tonight we're focusing on is National Parks and Recreation Month that we celebrated in July. In that month, we saw 2,694 participants, and we partnered with the Foundation of Pleasant Valley Recreation and Park District, the Friends of the Camarillo Dog Parks, the City of Camarillo, the City of Camarillo Library, the Friends of the Camarillo Library, AFLAX Inflatables, Surfrider Foundation Ventura, Seniors of Note Band, RC Manx, Camarillo Community Band, Camarillo Cosmos Track Club, some of our contract instructors, Revolution Surf and Skate Shop, Sunkissed Yoga, Mrs. Fig's Bookworm, food truck vendors, Rock City Studios, district residents, and our staff. In the corner, you'll see the root beer run and ice cream invite on the 14th. And we want to thank all those who participated and helped make these events wonderful. Here's a calendar of the events we hosted. I'm sure you guys have seen this a couple times. And we have some pictures. You'll see the Independence Day dance on the 3rd with the Seniors of Note in the background. The library in the park, you'll see Connie Hepburn, Mrs. Fig's owner, reading to the campers and participants of the library in the park. You'll see the Bob Kildee Community Center Park, sorry, not community, Bob Kildee Community Park pickleball courts grand reopening. And this to show you, we had some pre-planned events, but we incorporated them into National Parks and Recreation Month, the skate park event, and the pickleball grand reopening. And then we have events we do every year that we just made sure to emphasize with this National Parks and Rec Month, such as the Independence Day dance, the concerts in the parks, the movie in the park, and the 4th of July fireworks. More pictures for you guys to see. We have one of our contract instructors doing Tai Chi at the community center park. And then we have Bingo Bash and our family float night with our inflatable. Sorry, I lost my place. From this slide, you'll see the Recreation Department is trying new programs and services as a way to engage the community and its members who may not attend our classes, programs, or events. So you can see all the different things we tried for this month. Camarillo Community Band, the concerts in the park. We had 4 Thursday night concerts with a combined estimate attendance of 440 and an expense of $4,537. We showed 3 July movies in the park. Again, this is July only, with a combined estimate of $1,100 and an expense of $6,033. The events with the blue banner are events that performed well. The district is looking to expand and continuing developing these programs. The programs in red are ones we are reevaluating due to poor interest or attendance. And this shows the Sunset Guided Hike and the Nature Center Craft Day, both held at Camarillo Grove Park, and the Springville Dog Event. And I want to thank you guys for the presentation.
Thank you, Caitlin. Any questions?
No.
Bob?
None.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, item 5B, Community Band.
Good evening, Chairman Malloy, members of the board, General Manager. I'm here today with Mr. Dan Rhymes with the Camarillo Community Band for their annual update.
Okay.
Good evening, Chairman Malloy, board, Mariotten, and staff. Ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate the opportunity to be here. What I just handed up front is a letter, so to speak, or a card from the Camarillo Community Band at the last rehearsal, and as many as possible signed it saying their gratitude for supporting the program. I'll correct one thing on her slide there. She said she had 400 attendants. We were averaging 300 to 500 every night. So probably close to what, about 1,500, 1,600 for the summer? Yeah. At any rate, we'll help her with her estimates next year. The Camarillo Community Band was founded in 1986 by Mr. Kirk Raymond, at that time band director at Rio Mesa High School. This year is the 33rd season of the Camarillo Community Band making music, and normally we would have talked to it before the summer, but so obviously that's already happened this year. The format for the Camarillo Community Band concerts was designed by Mr. Raymond, based on summer band concerts in the park, which Kirk experienced in his youth in Central California. Modesto, I believe, is the city primarily. In fact, the band up there is going to celebrate their 100th year this coming year. So they've been going on for a long time. There are about an estimated 2,000 community bands in the country of different variety and handled different ways. Kirk organized and coordinated and directed the annual event for 14 years until he decided to step down to spend more time with his family. He has directed 80 of the 221 total concerts to date. Mr. Raymond has been also a guest conductor on several occasions through the years. Usually every 5 years I get to bring him back. The first rehearsal, I joined the band with my son Scott and my wife Linda for the first rehearsal in 1986. I have not missed more than 5 concerts in the 32 years of the band's existence, or 33 years. In addition to myself, we had 3 other charter members play this summer. Currently, half of the participating band members have played with the band for over 20 years. So it's a good retention. I worked with Mr. Raymond from the beginning, handling the music and other miscellaneous projects. When he decided to retire from the band, we had to determine who would direct the band. He was selecting the music, he was directing every concert, he was doing everything except what I could try and take from him to help him. So we discovered it was difficult to find an individual willing to do what he had been doing for 14 years. So we decided to invite local band directors to be a guest conductor for each individual summer concert. We continue to select the concert conductors in this manner today. 4 of the directors have directed 142 of the 221 concerts we presented. We try to involve local directors as much as possible, making this a true community band. Top 4 directors, Mr. Raymond has done 80, Mr. John Stava, who's now up north, directed 26, Dr. Julie Judd has directed 22. She'll be directing our Christmas concert on the 9th, I believe that is, of December. And Mr. Bob Hackett has directed 14. The guest conductor concept has been very successful. The band gets to rehearse with a different conductor each week. Each conductor only directs one concert, and the rehearsal is preparing for that concert. The exception being the first concert, where he directs not only the 4th of July concert, but the first one of that week. And hopefully there's enough difference. They aren't identical concerts. The band gets to play, and the audience hears music from other band libraries. The guest conductor often selects and brings titles from his own library. So all of this provides a positive experience for all, a win for the band, a win for the audience, a win for the director. Everyone gains. The community band is primarily an organization for adults, but we do allow students still in high school to participate if they can pass an audition. Adults do not have to audition. They make their own decision as to their participation in the band. We do not expect a band member to commit their time for all concerts during the summer. We do request that they only attend the rehearsals preparing for the concerts in which they will participate. The Camarillo Community Band has performed in Constitution Park for the first 23 years. And Pleasant Valley Recreation and Park District offered the band to move to Community Center Park, which offered better parking, better restrooms, and they would construct a stage for us to use. Eventually, you actually bought the stage that you put out there now. Remember the first ones they built was on a flatbed truck with, very creative, I thought. The Community Center Park has better acoustics, and the Pleasant Valley Recreation and Park District employees have been very helpful and creative. We currently continue to play in the Community Center Park. I keep trying to call it the Camarillo Community Center, and I keep getting corrected. But, you know, there are other community center parks in the county. So I still call it the Camarillo Park. The music we play. In its summer concerts, the Camarillo Band plays popular music from the swing era, Broadway show tunes, movie, TV themes, light classical, jazz, marches, novelty tunes, patriotic, and we repeat the favorite from the previous concert. And occasionally we stick in some classical things just to see if the audience is listening. Our audience, Camarillo Community Band regularly plays to audiences from 300 to 500 people. In fact, this particular year, I think we were running 350 to 400 on that first concert. We were very pleased with that. At times, we acknowledge special events and always get kids an opportunity to direct the band with a special baton. We may have to create a new baton if plastic straws are banned throughout the area. I have a supply for a couple of years, but anyway, by the numbers, some interesting facts. 300 plus current band members are on our mailing list. That's not just all in Camarillo, that's from the community at large. We normally have an average of 60 band members play for each concert. A total of 432 band members have participated in the band since the start of guest conductors conducting the band. Over 500 since the beginning in 1986. Obviously, the numbers go up and down due to passing and people move. And let's see. Yeah, approximately 100 to 120 band members participate in the concerts each year. 26 guest conductors have led the band since Mr. Raymond retired. No one gets paid for their service to the band program. The spouse of the guest conductor receives a gift card as a thank you for time served by the guest conductor. Donations from the audience are used for new music, equipment, advertising, etc. The band library currently has over 250 titles purchased with donated funds. Donations have been received in memory of past members, which has helped us certainly a lot. And we have 4 charter members, and that's the person that was there in the first concert, 4 charter members who still participate each year. In fact, I found one that hadn't played. She came in the first 2 concerts and hadn't been here since, and we got her to come back this year. It was kind of cool. This year, now you can have these out, sir. The extras you can do. What he's handing out is a flyer, the advertising programs from this summer, samples for you. July 4th and July 5th, Mr. Robert Haggett from Agoura High School directed. July 20th, Mike Genjemi from Westlake High School. July 19th, Darlene Hale, who's at the University Preparation Charter School. She has a long history, and you ought to check her bio, in music. She's currently in administration, but she directed high schools in the Anaheim district for 14 to 17 years. Well-versed, and I thought she did a good job. And then July 26th, Dr. Julie Judd, who is the Chief Technology Officer for the Ventura County Office of Education. This is music is her sideline. I think she has her master's in conducting, and a very gifted lady. Our gift to the community, the Camarillo Community Band has given back to the community through many different events over the last 33 years. Not only the annual summer concerts on the Thursday evenings, but the Christmas concert in December. Remember the Metrolink Christmas train? 4th of July celebration. We do the Memorial Day services along with the rest of the crew up there at Caneo Mountain Memorial Park. We played at the City of Camarillo's 25th and 50th anniversary. And we've also done graduation ceremonies for the California Conservation Corps out on Wright Road. When Mr. Raymond decided to step down, I assumed the position of band manager. A governing board of loyal band members was selected by Mr. Raymond and myself to continue to direct the activities of the Camarillo Community Band. 3 of the board members were charter members, but all have participated for more than 20 years. A few months prior to the 2018 summer concert series, the Pleasant Valley Recreation and Park District imposed new requirements for the community band. A formal memo of understanding, an MOU, was requested. And by the way, prior to that, I had never heard of an MOU in all my years of doing things. But we created an MOU. An insurance policy was required, and the Camarillo Community Band would have to pay for off-site rehearsal facilities if rehearsal arrangements cannot be arranged on Pleasant Valley property. As a result of these new requirements, that obviously increased our costs, the community band has started the process of forming a nonprofit 501c3 organization. You know, sometimes this takes up to a year. We're in the process of deciding on bylaws at our next meeting. But I have several of the members here. I can introduce them as we go along here. Myself, of course, I'm acting as president. Betty Wyke, if you could stand, as vice president. Karen Gatchell is treasurer. Did she come? There she is. Dr. Mark Fisher, secretary. Rick Austinson is a member at large. Doug Hardy couldn't be here tonight. He's a member at large. David Hudnall, member at large. Did he make it? He's dealing with a pregnancy. Well, not him, but his. You know about those things, don't you? Yes. And Mary Ellen Perez Leffler, member at charge. I think she's on the road. And, of course, my wife, who's now directing a choir this evening, is also a member at large. So that's the team at this point, and we're working forward to complete the 501c3 program. Thank you. Thank you for your support. Your support has made it possible to serve the individual musicians in our community. The Camarillo Community Band, like other community bands, is an organization which serves the individual and the community at the same time. It provides an opportunity for the members of our community to continue making music, which was one of the primary goals when I got into it. You get out of college, or out of high school even, you've got all this skill you put together on an instrument. What do you do with it? You put the horn in the closet, and hopefully your kids will play it. There had to be an opportunity, and that's why I've been supporting of it, to give opportunity for those people to, as an adult, they come and they make their own decision to play and bring their horn and play every other note if that's all they can do. There's enough others who can play the notes, it sounds good. But everyone has an opportunity. In fact, Dr. Fisher's wife, can I tell the story? She's not here, is she? She's here. I taught two of their sons. And one of them went off to college and left the clarinet in the closet. And she came up afterwards and said, "You guys are having a lot of fun up here. I want to play." She'd never played a horn. So she started taking lessons from me, and the next year, she was up on stage playing. So it's helping people as an adults who want to learn, to want to start. It's helping those that have been put a lot of years in and just want a place to play. And it's through this relationship between you and I and all the members of the band that it makes it work. And so we're very appreciative of that. Thank you. You have any questions?
Thank you, Dan. Mike, you good?
No, I just want to say thank you. I've always, whenever I attend, when I can attend, I always have a great time. You guys do a great job. Thank you very much for all that. Thank you.
And you're welcome to come up and direct sometime.
Oh, okay. I'll bring my own straw. Okay.
We're going to have to buy paper straws next year. So.
Yes. Or come up with something different.
Yeah. Elaine?
I'm glad to hear a story about the lady with that wanted to play. I have a clarinet sitting at home in a closet.
Oh.
Haven't played it for 50 years. I'm not sure I still can, but you never. I know, you never know. You just never know. I keep saying, I'm going to do that sometime. So we'll see when I have time. But Dan, thank you for what you do.
No, thank you very much for the service to the community. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I can't believe how quickly a year goes by.
Too quickly.
And so I thanked you the year before last year, and I thank you this year.
Seems as we get older, they go a little faster, don't they?
I hate to say that, but I do agree with you.
Thank you.
I would add you should take your phone out and put December 9th in your phone, because Julie Judd is an absolute blast. She has so much fun leading the band, and the fact that she's doing it on December 9th is going to make it a really special event. And
she's also director, of the county concert band through Ventura Unified.
Oh, the people you had leading they're all amazing. And it's a different flavor of amazing each week because they have their own things that they like and their types of music, but it was really interesting, and I would agree with you. You had 300 to 400 there every night. We missed the first night because we had a meeting that night. I couldn't be there, but the 3 times that we went, it was
You could have brought
terrific.
the meeting there.
No, you guys are having way too much fun. You didn't need us, but thank you, Dan, and thank your wife for me too. You guys, and Betty, you guys just do an awesome job.
Thank you very much.
See you next year. Okay. Item 6, public comment. I only have one card. Are there any more cards for public comment? Yeah, please bring them up here. I'll read the little spiel about public comment since you may not have an agenda. In accordance with Government Code Section 54954.3, the board reserves this time to hear from the public. If you would like to speak about an item on the agenda, we would prefer you complete a speaker card, give it to the clerk of the board, and wait until it comes up. If you would like to make comments about other areas not on this agenda, in accordance with California law, we will listen, note them, and bring them back up at a later date for discussion. Speakers will be allowed 3 minutes to address the board. And let's see, that's a later item. Okay, so I only have one card for public comment not on an agenda item, and that is Mr. Ray Komar.
Thank you. My name is Ray Komar, and I'm here to talk about item 8, but not the granting of a contract for that retainer wall. Rather, I'm here, along with many others that use the dog park on a regular basis, to say that we feel this board owes us, the users and the taxpayers, a better description as what is going to happen. A month ago, we go to the park and there's a stud horse type of sign, park closed October through January. We called the district office and they said they didn't know anything about a sign. Another day, the sign was gone. Chairman Malloy tried to send us an email giving us some of the ideas that are being kicked around. but nothing has been solidified. We feel that you have an obligation as the board to let us know exactly what's happening. When you say we've got a major job going here, if it's a $20,000 retainer wall, that cannot be that major of an issue. So we're looking for answers from this board as to what we're doing with the dog park and that retainer wall that's not going to be so inconvenient to the hundreds of users of that park and the thousands of little dogs that use that park. Thank you.
Okay, do you understand that's on the agenda tonight?
Pardon me?
That this whole discussion is on the agenda tonight? We are going to talk about this?
Yes.
Okay. That's fine.
And now,
After we've made the presentation, if you have any questions about it, if there's something you don't understand what we're doing, let me know and I'll let you speak again, because you're speaking before seeing what it's about, and
right.
I understand that this is important to you and you anxious to
Okay.
get our
We
attention.
just want to make our voices heard.
I totally understand. Okay, thank you. Mr. Krupp, on your card, you said dog park closure. Do you want to wait until the agenda? Okay, great. All right. Okay, that moves us to item 7, consent agenda. Is there a consent agenda item the board wishes to remove from it and discuss? None? You have none, Mike? Elaine? No? Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as proposed? Do I have a motion to?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Please call the roll.
Wagner,
Aye.
Director Mishler,
Aye.
Director Dixon,
Aye.
Director Kelly,
Aye.
Chairman Malloy.
Aye. Okay. That moves us to item 8A, consideration and approval of bid award for the Springville retaining wall renovation project.
Good evening, Chairman Malloy, members of the board. Tonight I'm coming to you to get the approval for the retaining wall. We'll do some talking about it, what the time frames are. So it's recommended the board approve and authorize general manager enter an agreement with Rolling Stone Masonry to construct the retaining wall at the Springville Dog Park, amount of $19,875. A little background. January 3rd, 2018, the board retained Delaney Engineering to design and construct the plans for retaining wall. July 5th, we adopted the board approved the retaining wall plans. The retaining wall is to stabilize the hillside. It's been sliding for 21 years, I believe. Springfield Park was first developed in '97 as a 5-acre park. On the south side, it contains 3 tennis courts, off-street parking, and 1 portable restroom. The north side of the park is approximately 3 acres, and it includes Vista Gardens, picnic area, off-street parking, and what was a softball field. 2010, the development was secured with the off-leash area, dog leash area, with a proposed scope of a project to include approximately 1.5 acres of usable turf, extend the walkway entrance to the off-leash area, install a 5-foot chain link fence around the outside, install a bullpen with 3 access gates, and add ADA parking and a ramp installation. In 2015, Camarillo Dog Parks Foundation donated $5,000 for pavers and increased the size of the small dog area about by 20 feet or so. In 2016, staff placed a temporary fence to mitigate the further damage from the hillside coming down. And the existing photo of it right now. You can see how much that slope's come down. There's actually a mow curb strip back there, been buried for years. On the background more. So current renovation is to address the slope on the north side of the park. Hillside is about 25 to 30 feet tall from the base of the grass up. Fence approximately 390 feet long from east to west. And to install a single-tier retaining wall with a fence on top to minimize the wear from the dogs jumping up over it. Staff has been working with Delaney Engineering on the design of the wall and the fence on top of the wall to keep dogs from running up and down. Ways to mitigate further damage to the hillside are plant mixed ground cover, shrubs, trees, a little more grass perennials with different root depths to help that maintain the slope. Build a retaining wall to minimize erosion, maintain the slope's integrity, and add additional attractive background plants and stuff to the wall, to it. The retaining wall is a little more aggressive and long-term approach. It's usually made out of concrete blocks and it would last 30 to 50 years depending on what is planted there. This is our proposed project. That retaining wall, roughly 42 inches maximum, with a fence on top of that, about 42 inches maximum. And all those are codes for city codes and stuff for in case somebody gets back there and falls over. So it's got to be 42 inches. And that'll be the length of that, and that's actually 320 feet long. Here's the top view of it all. If you can see this area, and this area, those are little pop-outs they'll have a little pergola up on top of it for benches underneath there for shade, because we know the sun gets out there. Here will be, these are all pavers. And then we'll add larger trees eventually with the donations. Delaney Engineering sent over their cost estimate for the scope of the project, and it was outsourced. It was coming in as high as $116,000. We reviewed the cost estimates and came up with the following options for cost savings. We can purchase the materials, we can perform the demolition, we can build a wood fence. We'll sub out the retaining wall and the mow curb, and the rest we can handle ourselves. Here's a little cost estimate. The labor, $19,000, almost $20,000. We won't be paying for the markup of if we purchase stuff. There's no markup, like 10-15%. So it's everything there. We'll do it ourselves. The $6,500 for the blocks, caps, $1,000, and that comes up to $62,535. I contacted 4 contractors. I got 2 bids back: Rolling Stone Masonry and Cameron Masonry. This, a reminder, it's only a labor-only bid. Here's the scope of work to be done in September. Relocate the temporary fence to come out approximately 30 feet. Again, it's probably going to be a little bit more than 30, I believe, because the gate is actually further. And then we'll cut it back in. Remove the dirt from the slope, and regrade for stabilization for the wall. We'll clean up the vegetation on the north slope, the wall. Remove existing mow curb. There's 5 valves that are buried under there, so we'll relocate those out to the grass around the sides of the outsides of the dog park. We'll trench for the footing, since we'll have the tractors up there. Oops, sorry. October. We'll start the wall in October, and the mow curb. Mow curb might be later in October because we're still holding off on closing it down all the way. We'll install a perforated drain pipe, help it drain. We'll plant the vegetation. We'll build a wood or metal fence, whatever the board decides, at a minimum 42 inches high. Scope of work to be done in November. Now, I remind you, this was a softball field. Softball fields are laid out different. So we're not getting the adequate watering we need. So we're going to complete renovation of the irrigation system. We'll install approximately 950 feet of walking path, DG path, and we'll put seed and top dress dependent on weather and conditions of the park. This is when we'd shut down in November, more than likely. As I get to it, I'll tell you. Springville Dog Park will remain open during the months of September and October. They'll lose a small section with about 30 feet approximately. Again, we'll allow for the tractors and the trucks to go in there and drop material off and the workers. During the month of November, the large park will be closed due for the renovation of the irrigation system and the construction of the walking path. And as part of the project, Friends of Camarillo Dog Park, the FCDP, have agreed to assist with the shade structures, installing a brick pathway, and larger trees as funding becomes available. as part of the plan, there are 3 bump outs, which I pointed out to you earlier, for the shade structures. And again, one there, and one over here. We're supposed to leave a view. When that was the Vista Gardens was built, we said we'd leave a view of everything, which is why we moved them over here. There's the plans of the wall. It's hard to see. And again, just options for the fence. This one's too tall, but it's the same idea. Okay, funding for this project is rolled over from 2017-18 budget, and in the capital projects that total of $81,000. So it is recommended the board approve and authorize the general manager to enter an agreement with Rolling Stone Masonry to construct the retaining wall at Springville Dog Park in the amount of $19,875. Any questions?
Okay. Doc?
Yeah. So just to be clear for everybody here present, the park is not going to be closed for 3 months. It's closed for...
It'll be closed for, I'm going to say maybe 5 to, depends on the growing period. Depends on rain. So I'm going to say minimum 5 weeks.
Okay. And in your, it doesn't say that in our packet, but in your presentation, you said for the month of November that the large park will be closed. Does that mean the entire park, or is it
the entire park? Because
okay.
what's going to go on? Let me back up a couple. So this was a ball field right here. You can kind of see the outline of it still. So all this irrigation is very hard. We have wet spots in this area really bad. We have over here, this water's over here. It wasn't designed for a dog park when this was built. We have dry areas up this area. Again, it was designed for a ball field, and that's what it was. And then when it became a dog park, we never changed the irrigation. So that's what's causing us some difficulties in maintaining that park to keep it green and, nice looking. And again, you got the drinking fountain down here, and that causes a lot of water over. So that's why we got to bring those pavers down. There'll be permeable pavers, so it's going to drain into the system.
And what would happen if we just didn't do this? What would be the consequence to our park and to the property above if we didn't protect the slope?
That hill will keep coming down. Even with the fence there, where it rains, it's still going to slide.
And for clarification, Bob, what's up behind that hill?
Probably about a 1 million gallon water tank,
Okay.
if not bigger.
Okay. Well, thanks, Bob. Thanks.
Bob, the fence looks better than I expected. What kind of material is that? That's not real wood, is it?
Yes, sir.
How is that wood going to be preserved over the years?
We can get treated wood. So
Where does it come from?
Lumber yards.
Local?
Yep. We can go to, Hagel, excuse me. Home Depot's available. It's kind of wet. I'm not a particularly fan of their wood.
So I know what treated wood looks like. It doesn't look like that.
No, that's been stained and everything. Let me go back to it. That's probably a homeowner's property that's been stained.
I mean, so it's not going to look exactly like that.
Wouldn't look exactly like that. If you kind of seen, what was it, the Nature Center and the dog park out there at Camarillo Grove?
Okay, all right.
Something like that.
All right. And so we are going to be able to preserve that wood because...
Yes, we can put stuff on it and twice a year go by and spray it with linseed oil, and that'll keep it looking good.
Okay. Secondly, the trees that are being put in there. I'm all for trees. But I'm concerned that they will get large and shade the grass. And we all know what dog parks look like that are overused and have shaded areas. They turn to dirt.
Yes.
And letting it turn to dirt allows the facility to leave the dog park open 365 days out of the year, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Much easier to take care of with the dirt.
Yes, and that's why if you go over the hill to a lot of those places, they're all dirt, and they are open every single day.
Yes.
So are those, if they shade a large portion of the turf there, is it going to be a problem to maintain that turf?
No, and we're going to put larger trees in, and we'll block. We have to fence them off for the first few years of growth because the dogs, they choose to use that as a fire hydrant, per se. So we'll fence them off and put a larger tree to help it grow a little quicker and maintain its integrity of the root system. And then, I'll be looking at Matt for his wisely advice on which trees we should put there.
Do you consider this a major upgrade for this park?
Yes, I do.
That's all I have.
Okay. Elaine?
Bob, would you go back to the layout? Oh, go back. You're going the wrong way.
Yeah, I thought it was.
I love the fence because that's the fence we have out at the Nature Center, right there. That's perfect. The retaining wall is going to go where the brown is. Am I correct?
Yes, this brown right across there.
Okay. Where's the fence going to go?
The temporary fence or the fence on top of the wall?
Where's the fence that we're going to build? Where's it going to go? On top
Probably
of
6
the
inches, probably 6 inches behind that retaining wall.
6 inches behind.
Roughly.
Okay. The current, what you've got, it looks like dirt right now. Are we going to push that back any? So, because I know that's all come down, because my son was one of the users of that baseball field. So I've been up that field since about '89. So, and that's come down a long ways. I would say it's probably 20 to 30 feet that's come down.
There's area it's probably gotten that far.
Yeah. So are we going to push that back any, or are we just going to leave it pushed out?
We're going to, so far, if all goes right, we should be in there Monday. They should have the fence moved on Monday. And we'll pull that fence out on Monday, or unless we get it sooner, we're waiting to hear back. Then we'll go in there and remove probably 10 feet of dirt backwards towards the water tank. Okay. We pull that out, and then we'll dig a trench about 2 feet deep roughly. They'll put base in it and then start the block wall. Then as it gets up to the 42-inch height, we'll be backfilling that dirt back in it. Okay. And the dirt will come flat and slowly start going up. So it'll have, if it doesn't want to come down, it's got ways to fill up before it hits that wall ever again.
Okay. Okay. And then the little areas for seating, how big are they going to be? Are they going to be 4 or 6 feet wide, or
they're going to be?
I mean, long.
They're going to be
not wide.
Long. They'll probably be. We haven't really gotten down details, but they're probably about 12 feet long. We figure, and about 10 to 12 feet out. Oops, excuse me, out. So when people sit in the benches, people can walk by.
Okay.
So no interruption.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Mike?
Yeah. Hi, Bob. Thanks. Can you just point out, because I'm not sure if it was clear to everybody, that we're talking about a retaining wall, but this is actually more than just a retaining wall, sticking up a retaining wall, because you can obviously put up a retaining wall literally in a couple of weeks max or a couple of days. I mean,
right.
Okay, so this is part of, I think part of the reason the public is concerned is because they just hear the word retaining wall and they're confused why something that they think should take a week or two is ending up taking 3 months. So just to go over this, you got the retaining wall, all the dirt behind there, but you also, just stay on that map. You're perfect, Bob.
Okay.
So you also have, and you just run by it real quick. So part of the upgrade to the site will be a decomposed granite walking path that now go around the entire inside. So that's that little brown area hidden by the trees there part way. So that's all going to be new, correct? We don't have a walking path there, correct, now, right?
Correct.
So all that's going to be new. And so those 3 areas you talked about, the potential shade cover area in the future, are going to be pushed out larger with more DG so that the grass won't die when people walk through there and sit there.
Correct.
Okay. And then you're also going to have to do up against that the new retaining wall, coming down, there's a bunch of slope fill that's come down over the old grass, and all that dirt's going to have to be removed and leveled back out again with a new sprinkler system, like you mentioned, the 5 water sprinkler valves and all that. So all that grass is going to be torn out and have to be replaced and regrown from scratch with the seed.
Right, and also with all the equipment on there.
Correct. And then also, now, another question for you is down here where the old baseball field is, my question is, there's a different type of soil. They use the old sand gravel mix down there. We never did anything with that. Do we need to? I'm concerned. You talked about redoing the sprinkler system over the whole site so we can have better water coverage, and that also reduce our costs. And for people who don't know in the public, about 10% of our annual budget goes to paying for water. So having a good sprinkler system is very important to us for saving money. But in that area that used to be the field, are you going to do anything for that soil in there, for the grass? Are you going to try to do anything, upgrade or do anything in there? Or is that going to be, are you going to mix it up or rototill it or anything?
No,
I'm just curious.
When we did that originally, we tore down about 4 inches of dirt. We tore out and then put more topsoil in there and dirt. And then we planted it with the Bermuda, hybrid Bermuda.
So you think that would be okay?
Yeah, it's sturdy. It's tough grass.
Well, I'm concerned about the soil. Since we're doing all this, if we need to work on the soil, this is the time to do it. Not again next year or 2 years from now or 3 years from now. I mean, we might as well work. But you're saying that soil you think is good enough?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm making sure. I mean, I want to. Okay.
No, but what we are doing when we do the irrigation, and forgive me, I forgot to put the irrigation drawings in here. I apologize. But the main line kind of runs down this way, and I believe it's on this side too. But so we will have irrigation, all new trenching throughout here, with the laterals and the main line. So that's what's going to tear up that grass, and it'll be trenched in there. So we'll have a 12-inch wide trench that's going to go across that park, all through it to again help us mitigate that water problem we've been having, and keep better track on it.
And if you only allow the users back on the site a week after you plant the seed, the grasses are going to die, correct?
Yes.
So we want to have a park with a grass. We got to fix the sprinkler system, and we got to let the grass grow before people get back onto it.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Go ahead.
Well, you were
Bob.
not-
Go ahead. Go ahead. Ask a question.
What are you going to, regarding the hill that's coming down, where we're going to put the retaining wall, hopefully to stop that erosion? Are you going? Don't you have to have a geologist or something come in there and make sure that we don't do something that could cause a major problem?
Yes, they have done that. We spent $18,000 on a structural engineer, and he hired a geologist to come out there and do all their tests.
Have we seen that report?
No. I mean, they're not 100% finished. It's in plan check now.
Okay, so we will eventually see it.
Yes.
Okay. It looks like a beautiful improvement to me. I know it's an inconvenience, but what I want the public to know is this was a park originally, and when it was proposed to be a dog park, a lot of the neighbors came in here and just ripped us for doing that.
I remember that.
And so we took it and we went ahead and built this dog park anyway. And I understand everybody needs to use it once you get used to using a place, you want to keep using it. But I don't really, from a safety concern and liability concern, I don't really see any choice. But maybe the public can give some comment tonight about some alternative ways that we haven't thought of. That's all I have.
Okay. I got more involved in this than I usually am because Mary was on medical leave, and normally Mary would have short-stopped this and got it all resolved. But a few people got really upset, and frankly, I don't blame them. To just show up and find out the park was going to be closed 3 months with no explanation is not okay. So I get why they're upset. But as Bob was making his comments about the cost of it, I remember we talked about this project months and months ago, and we were all kind of like, "Why is it so expensive?" Like we just said, put a retaining wall in. We didn't, and everything we do has to last forever, more or less, and everything we do, has potential liabilities. And when there's a few million gallons of water on the other side of that hill, that's a staggering responsibility. Now, I'd like to think that water tank is engineered so that it doesn't matter if there's any dirt there at all. But, I'd like to think that Oroville was built the first time too, and 1.1 billion later, we're still fixing it. So, we really need to do things like this to a level of detail, which unfortunately ends up getting really expensive. So the wall needs a really substantial, well-engineered footing, and I asked Bob to bring a block in to show people the substantialness of these blocks, because it's not the little ones that we put in our homeowner's yard to build the little retaining walls with. It's a monster thing. We have some out at the horse arena, and they're really big, really substantial. They're not going anywhere. And although it wasn't mentioned, that surface will be a sitting area. So that whole wall up there, you'll have a chance to sit and look across and look. You'll get your time. You'll get your time. Okay, you'll get your time. I promise. Okay, we're almost done, and then it'll be your turn. Then as Mary came back and I got to working with the Friends of Camarillo Dog Park, we saw what other things we wanted to do. This turned into a bigger project than we originally intended, and it'll make the park a lot better. I mean, my wife and I often go to that park, and it's not unusual to see 60 people and 65 dogs out there. It's an incredibly intensely used park, which I got involved in district business by building baseball fields, and I know how hard it is to keep grass growing and keep it healthy when you have a zillion people going over it, no less dogs and dog waste part of the picture too. So it's a real challenge. But we're committed to doing it right and getting it done in a cost-effective manner as well, and do it in as timely as we can. Keep in mind, when it is shut, in November is the least fun month to be outdoors, playing outside. So we've got it scheduled to where it is going to be down during the time it's least used, but it also, unfortunately, it's during the time when the grass barely grows at all, because the type of grass we have out there, kikuyu grass, is essentially dormant that time of year. So it's not going to grow back very fast. So in 5 weeks, it's not going to look like what we want it to look like, and it'll take a lot of help from you people and the other users to help it get to that place over time. But we're putting the things in place to make it right.
I might be coming back to you in March, April, just to have it a little more time to reseed it, and if it doesn't take what we want to.
Yeah.
So, and also, might I say, this all has to be done by prevailing wage. Which that's another reason that wall's so expensive.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So we've asked all our questions. We'll now have public comment. I have 4 cards here. If anybody else would like to comment on this, turn a card in with the item 8A item on it. We'll start with, is it Sandra, is it Mall or Matt? I can't, Matt.
Chairman Mallory. Sandra Mott, 7079 Quito Court, Camarillo. Thanks for the explanation that the dog park will most likely not be closed the entire 3 months, and I do see the need for improvement. But I do like to point out quickly that I asked to offer the citizen and our community another option for an off-leash all-day dog park area. Right now we have 2 other dog parks, which Mission Oaks is only open from 4 p.m. to dusk, and then on the weekends. So if you could consider opening a different field or an area where we can be happily let our dogs off leash play during this process. Also, looking now at the plans you've been giving, the tree roots that you're planning on building, they're very close to the wall. I can see the roots lifting the wall within less than 10 years, just to give us an option for consideration. Also, The grass will definitely not grow in November that fast, and I haven't seen, and I moved here only 3 years ago, but I haven't seen rain in November at all, just to let you know. So it will take longer. Again, that leads to please offer us a different option for letting our dogs off leash. What else? If you look at this, when you said we're not going to redo any of the soil right now under the tree area on the street side, it is very muddy. It is very wet from sprinklers, and it's very muddy. So the soil needs to be upgraded, rotated, amendment, whatever needs to be put in to make it work in the long run. Also, looking at the wood fencing, which looks obviously very nice if maintained. If it's within reach of people touching it, I can see splinters and other damage and dogs chewing on it if it's not high enough up, just to let you know. That's it from me, just to consider.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Aaron Myers.
Good evening. Thank you. My name is Aaron Myers. I live at 364 Spring Oak Road, apartment 2026. And like many of the people here today, I am upset and concerned with the upcoming construction projects you have planned for the Springville Dog Park. While some of you may think it's no big deal, this beautiful dog park is part of the fabric of this community, and I do not have much faith that the project will be done in a reasonable amount of time, which I will address in a second. My wife and I bring our dog Marley to Springville Dog Park every day. It's one of my favorite things to do because of the joy it brings to my dog and the wonderful people and other dogs I have had the pleasure of meeting over the past 2 years. I would ask that you do not underestimate the sense of community that the dog park facilitates for the residents of Camarillo. Since my wife and I are currently not fortunate enough to own a home with a yard, we are very dependent upon the dog park, and you are taking away something that is very important to me and this community. You may be thinking, well, too bad, there are 2 other dog parks in Camarillo. Mission Oaks Dog Park and Grove Park are substandard and pose a safety risk for our pets and are restrictive. Mission Oaks is located next to a softball field, is not completely fenced, and has only off-leash access for a limited period of time. The risk having our dogs run into the street or being hit by a softball is frightening to say the least. I was told that before Springville Dog Park was fully fenced, several dogs went into the street and were hit by cars. The Grove Park indicates it costs money to enter, is dark, creepy, and frankly disgusting. The rattlesnake signs, flies, bugs fly in your face, constant sounds of farm animals, dirt, and leaves in the dog park remind me of a movie set from a Stephen King movie. Other than 5 minutes ago, there has not been much information about the necessity of this project, the details of what is being done, or what is going to take so much time. Based on the length of time it has taken for a simple repair to be completed at the dog park and several holidays that will be going on during this closure, I would not be shocked if the dog park was closed for 6 months. This is not acceptable in my opinion. I think there needs to be some compromise that will allow the project to go forward but still allow us access to parts of the park while the project is taking place. The most reasonable solution, I think, would be to put fencing around the construction areas and leave room for us to still enjoy the dog park. I assume no work will be performed after 5 p.m., so the potential safety risk should not be an issue. Another solution is to delay this project until January of 2009, so there are not multiple major holidays that will further delay the closure. However, even if it is delayed until next year, it should stay open. Lastly, you could put some temporary fencing at the Mission Oaks Park so that people have a safe environment for their dogs. Regardless of what happens, I believe everyone here has an obligation to listen and respond to our concerns in a thoughtful manner. This project can be done much faster than 3 months, and we need to have a better explanation as to why this is taking place. I also believe we have a right to be provided with weekly updates as to the status of the project and when it will be done. Thank you for your time and consideration. I hope to make the right decision.
Johnny Krupp.
Good evening. I'm John Krupp. I live at 1731 Ukiah Street in Oxnard. I use the Springville Dog Park every day. I bring my 2 greyhounds. I'm well known to other people that are in the dog park. Thank you for explaining that the whole place isn't going to be shut down for 3 months. The muddy areas are terrible, and with the upgrade in the sprinkler system, it will be nice. I learned today that it's going to be $19,875. Correct that. $19,375. Thank you.
Thank you. Bob Aaron.
We just walked out.
Oh. Okay, I'll put him to the bottom. Carol Woolley.
Good evening. I want to commend you on a fantastic dog park. With the traffic that you mentioned, I see it being used continually all the time. And the fact that they keep the grass in such great shape that they are doing, I think is fantastic. The one thing I'm concerned about is the two shade spots that they have in the retaining wall. They didn't show a design feature of how the shade is going to be done, and they're facing south, so the sun in the wintertime is going to be cutting underneath of there, and they won't be getting much shade. So they might want to consider putting them in a different spot. Right now, most people do sit where the trees are blocking the spot there that you can't see where the walkway is. And I don't know, because the trees are there and it does offer a little bit of shade and stuff. So I don't know. And it's already, the trees are so thick that the sun doesn't get through, that they might want to put the places for people to sit there, because then there's already shade. And in the summertime, that they could already have shade. But I would hate them to spend the money for those two shade spots and to not really, for it to offer any shade. So that, and the one on the left is always a good spot, because that's when the sun's going down when it's hot in the afternoon.
Yeah.
That is the spot that could use shade. And also the trees that the woman mentioned before, if they get big, that the roots could and there used to be more trees more out from where the walkway is currently proposed to be. And those trees got blown over, and so they might want to put them more out into the field. And if they're pruned properly, the sun can get through, and the grass will grow, in my experience, underneath the trees, if they're pruned and a little bit of sun can get through. But aside from that, I think it's a great plan, and thanks for taking the time and allowing us to have some input with you. But again, compliments on a fantastic, beautiful dog park.
Thank you, Carol. That shade issue we actually discussed when Cheryl and were out there, because it's not only the wrong angle, but it's elevated. So the shade structure will have to be much wider at the top to provide adequate shade. And you're right, the existing trees that are there provide a lot of shade. But having the decomposed granite path around the full perimeter will give us a lot more options to put benches down without creating a mud hole. I mean, the problem is now, as you know, when we put a bench in an area for more than 2 weeks, it turns into a mud hole because there's so much traffic. It kills the turf, and so it's a big challenge. But that one has been addressed. So we just mention that. Jacqueline, is it Popak? Popick.
Hi, I'm Jacqueline Popick. I'm on 2087 Alborada. I've been a long-term resident of Camarillo. I have 5 children from 15 to 22. I've actually been on those baseball fields. I remember how happy everybody was when we first thought about having a dog park. That was amazing to go through. However, I think change is great. I'm all for change. I think a lot of us are just confused because of the lack of communication as to what was being done, the time frame, and what the solution and what we're trying to solve. Because those of us who do use the space, some of this is not very conducive, right? For example, the shade, certain trees, the soil. We have issues with those soil spots. The walkway. I don't know anyone, and for those of us who go 2 or 3 times a day, that actually walks that perimeter. Usually stay around your dogs and kind of chat and mingle. This is not the park that does it. The other one, perhaps, yes. But I will leave it to you guys to do. There's 2 concerns I have. One is I would love to see what the environmental impact study is. I would love to see what they're saying. I guess there was a geology report. We didn't see any of that. We didn't look anything up. We know very little. And I'm just trying to understand, when you spend money like this, and I'm not here to say yes or no. I'm here to listen to everybody, because change is always good. I just want to understand it. Because when you're talking about a park like this, that several people go to and depend on this for these animals that are their children of their own, I'm wondering what we're going to do for them. Is there a way that we can do temporary fencing for the animals to come? There's several holidays between October and December. While it may not rain in November, it does rain in January. Because of this soil, we don't close for a day or two. We actually close for 4 or 5, because when you walk on that with the dogs, it will get ruined. So I hate to see a 2-month project turn into a 3, turn into a 5-month. I just want to know, what is the solution for everybody else, and have we thought about that? That's all I had to say.
Thank you. Cheryl Marks.
Good evening. I'm Cheryl Marks, 1958 Edgemont in Camarillo. And a couple of things I wanted to first address, the need or the desire for a walking path. Now, she may not have seen anybody, but I remember several people who always would walk the perimeter of the park, which is what inspired the idea of putting a walking path in. So there may not be anybody doing it right now, but we have, can you hear me okay? Yeah, okay. So we do have people who like to walk around the park. And I'm one of those people as well. A couple of things we kicked around in our pre-meetings, and I wanted to know if those are still on the table. One of them was to maybe suspend the parking fees at the Grove during this renovation period to encourage more people to go, because I know that's part of the, that makes going over the Grove less attractive, is having to pay. So if that was being still considered, and letting people have that option to get like a temporary pass that that they wouldn't have to pay. The other thing was that plot of grass between the parking lot and the fence, that's not the interior of the park, which is supposed to be on leash only. We talked about maybe allowing people to come and use that area. It's not very big, but it does give a little bit of exercise room. And if that was also still a consideration for making it available for park users to, during that closed period of time, the 5 weeks or however long that's going to be. So that's all.
Well, let's address both those questions. Would we have any problem having a period of time that coincided with when the park was closed with allowing free use of the dog park at Cam Grove?
No, what we can do is we could waive the parking fee. We just put a waiver for parking fees during the month of November. The thing that we need to remember is that right now, Cam Grove, just for everybody's information, is open right now from dawn to dusk. And that the entire park is open for dogs, not just the dog park. But the reminder on weekends, because there are picnics and those things, that it is only open to the entire park until 9 a.m. And then after that, it's only the leashed area or the dog park areas. But we can look at waiving the fees for those months. And the other area right now, depending on the equipment that we have to bring in and from the front, because then what we'd have to do is, depending on the month, or not depending on that, but now you're trying to put another fence, so it depends on the equipment that we'd have to bring in. We haven't received, I don't think, clarification from the city if we can bring trucks and all those things in from the backside, which is off of, what is it, not Via Zamora.
Calle,
yeah.
something.
Can you point to that up there, Bob?
Yeah. So if you look on...
Okay, yeah, the west side.
Right. So we haven't received confirmation, because right now, because we're leaving the dog park open during September and October, we'll still bring the equipment in through the front, through that gate that's up there. Because if we come through the backside, we're going to have to tear up the fence, then replace it, which ends up costing more money. So since we're able to keep that open for those 2 months, the thought is to bring it through there. I just don't know yet what kind of equipment that we're going to have to bring through there. And I just don't want to get in a scenario where we end up with dogs and equipment mixing that just doesn't end up as a good mix. So as we get more information, we can update that. But we can at very least waive the fees at Cam Grove.
Okay. Speaking of Cam Grove, I just want to say, if anybody who has been there or hasn't been there in the last year, the fenced-in dog park was expanded. There's new artificial turf in a small section, so it's also been split into a large dog and small dog, or however you want to call it. So if you haven't been to the Grove in the last year, it's much better than it used to be. And we appreciate the work that was done. Thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl. Bob Aaron.
I'll wait for the next subject these people cover. This is better.
Okay, thank you, Bob. Okay, I have no other cards on this. Okay. Back to board discussion on the agenda item. So, the staff is requesting approval of the specifications to begin the bid process for the, excuse me.
Mark, can we?
I'm one item off here. Motion to approve and authorize general manager to enter an agreement with Rolling Stone to construct the retaining wall at Springville Park. That's
Okay.
the conversation. Okay.
Another issue that was brought up, another suggestion or idea, was setting up a temporary fence area. And I just want to ask Bob or Mary or somebody here in staff, if we were to do something, is there enough space at Mission Oaks Park to put in some type of temporary fencing for the time period that this is closed? You see what I'm saying? Or
You'd have to.
You still have the same problem with the time restraints.
Well, you're going the cost to put a temporary fence around that entire park.
No. Let me back up. My mistake.
Okay.
My mistake. I didn't say the entire Mission Oaks Park. I'm saying if you take a small little section, it may be the size of this room or something, and this type of space, and you put in, not by the school, but maybe away, or maybe toward the school if it's after hours, a little fenced off temporary fencing area. We're up against the base somewhere. So I'm just asking.
We really have to. The answer
I'm not asking you now to do it. I'm just saying.
We'd have to look at that. I'm going to probably defer a little bit to Cheryl and to Debbie regarding, because I know with Friends of Camarillo Dog Park and the 3 different parks and why there were a little bit differences with those and what we end up doing. Because if you take a small area and you put 100 dogs in there, we're going to see that grass deteriorate in no time. So that would be my hesitation with that. The other thing that we have to realize is if we do that, we also have the school that's right next door. So the school, part of the reason that those dog park hours, as I think somebody had said, is we're there from 4 p.m. until dusk, is because we do have kids that are over there. So you've got some of the issues with kids and dogs and mixing and some of that. So
I'm just going to propose for staff to look into.
Okay.
And obviously you can't do it in the next 5 minutes, but sometime here before we get to November, I'd like to see if staff can come back with some type of proposal for some type of temporary fencing area, and it doesn't have to be huge. And even if the grass, I'm thinking out loud in that even if the grass dies in there, or even if it's dirt right now, but even if the grass dies, at least when we come off and we open up the other park, then we can go back and resaw that area and won't have an impact or something, potentially. I'm not saying, but I just want staff to look at that and come back if there's any, and talk with the dog park people and see if there's some type of temporary setup that we can do. Or maybe even at the Cam Grove area, we got the dirt out there, maybe we can fence off part of that area and set up something, a larger space on dirt or something. I'm just thinking out loud. I'm just asking staff to come up with, if there's some type of area that, because that would be open, or if we put up a temporary fencing area at Cam Grove Park, then that would be open, whenever we have the park open during the day.
Because right now you've got 2 areas that do have fences. You've got the large dog park, and then we have the small dog park that we just put about $20,000 worth of artificial turf in.
Correct.
So, and those are open from dawn to dusk.
Right.
And then the rest of the park right now for Cam Grove is open, for dog park use throughout the day. with
Monday
no
through Friday.
Monday through Friday, and Saturday and Sunday are from 7 a.m. until 9, because then we have rentals out there. And once again, it was to make sure that with people that are renting, we don't have dogs running all over while people are renting those areas.
Right. But anyway, if the staff can just explore the option, the possibility of setting up some type of temporary fencing at some other location for the time period that this park will be shut down. As an option that we can explore later. There's no rush or panic. I mean, we're not going to do it next week or something, but before November. And then the other question I have for staff and Bob is where we look at those heavy trees on the south side, basically, where you can't see the dog. Yeah, the DG path goes under those trees, of course. Wouldn't it be a minor effort, Bob, to put in a fourth expanded DG area just for benches and stuff there? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Or is that already there? Is that already pre-planned for that?
No, it wasn't on there. We talked about 3 pop-outs, but most definitely we can move one of the ones above down that way, or just pop it out and have it the trees as your cover. It's actually great.
What I'm saying is if you've got the trees for shade, putting in some extra DG right there is a minor effort, correct?
Right.
I mean, that's about as cheap as and easiest thing you can do. And that will allow you to put a few benches down there in the shade with the DG and not hurt the grass.
Correct.
Can you explore that option?
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you just have to decide before you do it, because the mow curb is going to get poured there. So
Right.
the DG
Right.
is easy to move around, but mow curb is not so easy to move around.
Yeah.
So, okay.
I
You have anything else, Mike?
No, that's all I have. Thank you.
Elaine?
I have a question. Does brick dust ever break down
In time.
in time? Not in my lifetime, right? Jay's looking at me like stupid. You should know better than that. It really? It just doesn't break down.
It takes a long time, my
Okay.
opinion.
I'm not sure that's brick dust, but I'm assuming.
Yeah, truthfully, I don't remember what they put on back then.
It's been too long ago.
You're gonna use decomposed granite on that, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. I understood what the path was going to be, so, yeah. Okay, thank you.
Okay. I have a question. Sure.
Can you please come up if we can hear you?
Where the trees are that you can't see, yes, the ground goes down and there's a different type of fencing, and there's like a little, there's a gap, it's like iron rods, and there's like a little berm, and that it's like, it's mud or a lot of the time and stuff, and the balls go down and then, get lost or go down the hill or something. So were you planning on changing that fence around the old baseball diamond, or is that just going to stay the iron bars?
For now, it'll stay the iron.
And so, because that does make it a little, it's not like flat across, it kind of really cuts down there. So if you do put the gravel, maybe it might help the water to run off and it not be muddy there or something. I'm just looking at ways to save you guys money and that you're not wasting money on putting grass there that's going to ultimately get killed anyway right there, because that seems to be where it dies the most. Anyway, okay, thanks for answering that. Appreciate it.
Director Dixon.
Another question.
Just
Okay.
Please.
Pardon? Oh, you want it? I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
may I? Okay. The trees. Wrong one.
That's one way of getting.
Too many buttons.
Okay, the trees in this area provide shade for this area here. These trees here provide shade for this area here, morning and afternoon. There presently is a tree in approximately this area, and there's 2 benches, one on each side. This is as of today. 1 bench is in the shade, 1 bench is in the sun in the afternoon, the opposite in the morning. There's also a magnolia tree approximately this area here. No benches are near it. At present, those 2 benches, There's a bench here, a bench here, a bench here, and a bench here. Will those change? Are there going to be any more benches, or are the two benches here going to disappear and have this one instead? Right now, those few benches aren't really enough. We'd like to see more. I like the trees. This one here, here, here. I understand that this is for the presentation. Will they be that close to the retaining wall? Shouldn't they be farther out? Something for design. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Dixon.
Is there any possibility that the small dog park section could remain open, or is that going to be resodded also or reseeded?
It'll remain open during the construction phase, but once we start the irrigation, it'll shut down because we have to go through there with irrigation too.
So the same time frame as the rest of the park?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I'd agree that it would be fair. It looks to me like it would be fairly easy to add additional pop-outs and additional benches. That shouldn't be complex to do or real expensive to do. And under the trees would be an obvious place to put additional benches with or without removing the ones that are on the opposite side. So that's my only comments.
I just got one last one. Dr. Dixon just brought up a point of regarding the smaller dog park area. Isn't it possible to do the irrigation in stages where you do the big area first and then, I mean, it would buy a little bit?
It'd take more time. I mean, once we're out there trenching, we want to trench it all.
Yeah.
We want to get everything trenched, lay the main, start the laterals, and it's just a process that we should.
All right.
We could do it that way, but again, it's going to take that much more time.
Okay.
Okay, I have no further comment. I think the project is well described, and I think the next step is to authorize Mary to make the contract for do the work for the block wall.
I make a motion to authorize the general manager to enter into an agreement with Rolling Stone to construct the retaining wall at Springville Dog Park in the amount of $19,875.
Should we add to that during the phase at which the entire park is closed, that the fees to Oak Grove would be waived? Should that be part of this? Or
you're just going to do it?
I can waive them.
You can just waive that. Okay. Okay. Then I'll second the.
Okay. Is there any further discussion? None? Okay. Karen.
Director Magner?
Aye.
Director Dixon?
Aye.
Director Mishler?
Aye.
Director Kelly? Aye. Chairman Malloy?
Aye. I'd like to thank you all for coming tonight. We're on TV every month. This project will be on the agenda till it's done. So there's no reason to not provide your input. I think you've all got my email address. I think you certainly have Mary's email address, and feel free to comment and ask questions as it goes along. But I think you see that we're committed to doing a good job and doing it as promptly and as painlessly as possible. So, thank you again for coming. Okay, item 8B, consideration and approval of the plans and specifications for the Freedom Park renovation project and authorization to initiate the public bid process. And that will be Mary Otten make a presentation.
To stand up.
Yeah, right.
Yes, I said what you heard me say.
Chairman Malloy, board members, Mary Otten, General Manager, here to discuss the Freedom Park project. It is recommended the board consider and approve the plans and specifications for Freedom Park renovation project and authorization to initiate the public bid process. This would be what's considered phase 2 of the overall master plan that was, and we'll kind of go over some of the background of this. So in May of 29, the board approved and adopted the original Freedom Park master plan out at Freedom. And in June of 2010, the board approved an agreement with Jordan, Gilbert, and Bain Landscape for the original construction plans. In July of 2017, the board approved to review and update the next phase, which is considered phase 2 of the Freedom Park Master Plan as part of the capital projects. So a little background right now is Pleasant Valley School. So another piece of this that makes sure that everybody understands as we're updating this is another piece is Pleasant Valley School of Engineering and Arts, which is a transitional K-8 school, has moved to Temple. So they have swapped with one of the other schools, which is Alpha Bedford. And the reason for that swap with the school is that they now needed more space because that school is growing. So a couple of things as we're looking at these plans, and part of this is that they have now, the access gates have been installed between fields 2 and 3, which means that during the day, we don't have access to those fields as we have normally in the past. So just a little bit of background on that, which means, once again, fields aren't accessible during school hours, which totally understand, because with schools and with all the stuff that's going on with the schools, they now have to have enclosed schools, which means from 7 a.m. till 3 p.m., either the district and or Pony Baseball no longer has access. So discussions in the work regarding the green space on the eastern ends of those fields and what that looks like. I know currently today they have taken down a couple of the fences, which they typically do at this time of year, but what we don't know is how much that they're going to need as they move forward. And I think that right now affects 2 Shetland. 1 Shetland. Thank you. Okay. So with this project in mind, you can kind of see what the whole master plan out there that was approved. So these are the current fields out there. Here's the larger field. These are the 2 that we're talking about, which are on the west end of the park. So district staff has met with Pony Baseball as well as Jordan Gilbert Bain as well as Musco Lighting to review the original master plan layout. And the current lights that we have out there don't meet and won't meet the standard of night play. So even if we put fields in, if we turn the lights on, they couldn't play because there has to be certain light candles for safety. So those currently are not being met. Jay Bain has reviewed the original documents and revised the drawings in order to construct 2 more baseball fields from revised layouts. And Jay is here tonight, so as you have questions, he will be the gentleman that will be answering all the fun questions for you. So what does this include? The project will encompass the west end portion of the park. The west end will be revamped for the addition of 2 new baseball fields, Mustang and Pinto, and the revised plans to reflect baseball field dimensions conform to the new layout. So this was the original one, a little up close. What we're doing is actually changing this Pinto field, so it will now be going out this direction. So with making that change, that now means that we need to look at the lighting change, what that looks like, as well as the irrigation, sidewalks, all of those kinds of things. And part of the reason for this change was because when we talked to Musco Lighting, it is cheaper to move this field and face it this way. Otherwise, they would have to put a lot more lighting out there and what those costs would be. So in doing this, part of this was to help save cost on this next phase, which is what the objective here. So the document revisions, once again, we'll walk through the review and structural engineer calculations from phase 1. They've looked at the electrical engineering plans, the power, the voltage drops, where all of those things go. They'll be coordinating with Musco Lighting. We've had a civil engineer, field surveys, pavement, surface materials, prepare AutoCAD drawings. So once again, the specifications incorporating all the aspects of the construction so it's suitable to go out to bid, to make sure that we don't end up with all kinds of change orders and all of those things as we go out. We want to make sure that we have everything in order. So what this looks like is it measures all the areas of the new construction work in order to determine quantity of materials, labor requirements, construction projects, and as you've probably heard, the cost of labor as well as prevailing wage is actually has been going up. So what Jay has been doing is calculating the specific need for the concrete work, all the specific costs for backstops, related fencing, calculating quantities, cost of materials, irrigation work, turf additions, all of these things which must go into a bid project. So the base bid information, what I have for you is kind of what this looks like and where the architect, right now, where we're at from where we think that the bid should come back. So for mobilization, concrete grading, infill mix, the site surveys, you can see what the cost of those are. New electrical work, backstops with 10-foot fencing, home run fencing, benches for dugouts, foul poles, bases, repair and reseed the damage to the sod after driving on it, new Bermuda grass, and then potential new irrigation work. So Musco lighting, so the 118, that is moving and installing a couple new poles opposed and then repositioning some of the lights that are out there. So once again, that's much cheaper than having to redo the entire, in order to redo the entire thing, and then there's a 90-day maintenance period. So what you can see is the subtotal for all of that work right now is they're estimated $869,000, a contingency 15% of 130, so the total project being just under $1 million. So there's no fiscal impact at this time. The district board would need to allocate funds when the bid is awarded, and then we look at October to award the bid. So if we award the bid, then the district would need to decide whether it's coming out of capital or potentially Quimby funds. So that would be a discussion that we need to do, because at the time that we went through the budget, we didn't know what these costs would be. So once again, it is recommended the board consider and approve the plans and specifications for the Freedom Park renovation project and authorization to initiate the public bid process. And if anybody wants to look at the plans, sitting up at my chair right next to Director Mishler, there's an entire roll of plans, and we'll have 2 copies for people to look at, bidders, board, anybody that wants to look at those potential plans. And with that, I'm going to introduce Jay Bain, see if he has any other thing he would like to add, or if the board has any questions. Jay.
Good evening, board. My name is Jay Bain. I'm a resident of Camarillo for 32 years. I live on 2829 Waverly. So I'm glad to answer any of your questions.
And you probably designed about half the public irrigation systems in this community, or more.
Many, yes. When I did all the public schools back in the first bond passing,
right.
98, 99. We've done Springville Interchange, just did Carmen Drive, did Ponderosa Road, the new exchange at Daly. And we've done probably a good portion of the school renovations in the last Simi and Thousand Oaks.
Yeah, you also redid Pleasant Valley Field so that it would actually work.
Yeah, that's right. But we put a lot of effort in, and a lot of effort goes to staff who we work hand in hand with and have some for many years.
Great. I just want everybody to know that you're the sprinkler whisperer in this town.
Thank
you. Mike, do you have any question?
Yes. Can you go back to one of the site plan or something you had up there? I think the first one the current version, or that was the original version, Mary? This is the plan A, but we want the plan B. You're basically saying, with that one field switching around.
This one shifts.
Yeah. What?
Yes. This was the original plan for the west end, and this one has now shifted. So you can see this is home base. Home will now be here, and the field will be fronting on that.
Right. Okay. That's okay. Good. My first question is, along this west side, are we going to have a DG path there, or is that just going to be grass, or what's the current plan?
No, what will happen there is we will continue the concrete sidewalk, just like.
Oh, it'll be a concrete. 'Cause on this plan, I can't tell what's going to be there.
And the reason for that, honestly, is historically, when we do have rain and any kind of bad rain.
Oh, I know. That turns into a lake.
Yeah. So the possibility of using a DG or something that has substance and mud and that we lose the base, it's a loss. So we have to really put concrete in there as a permanent investment. And we are also bound by federal law, when we do a new park, we also have to make it accessible for everyone, people in wheelchairs and anyone who has a difficulty walking across grass. So we do have to provide that as a public service, so that's kind of a fixed point.
Okay, so I guess it really, maybe it's on there, I can't really tell, but there's going to be a cement walking path then that comes down and connects all that up. And I guess it's going to go part way across near the parking lot, up on the north end there a little bit too, maybe?
Presently, right now, just where that red dot is where we terminated the last part of our sidewalk improvement.
Right.
We're going to pick it up from there. And
okay, so it's going to carry across.
Carry across. And basically, if you can imagine, basically along the outer perimeter so that we allow as much of the turf area to be open for play.
Right,
the
okay.
sidewalk system will come through here, and they widen out. We're providing pads for bleachers. It's not part of what we're preparing right now, but eventually the Parks District will purchase and install their own bleachers. So there'll be pads available over here, and then basically the reason that this was almost put in almost like a spoke of a wheel was so that we can provide light poles in this direction and slightly along this edge to provide shared lighting here. Our big expense is the conduit runs and the electrical poles, and if I can make that as short of a line segment as possible, it's very efficient. So that's why the reason is we've already pulled spare conduits all the way along the back of this, so all we have to do is pull the wires through. So the master plan, in theory, helps us along as far as savings-wise goes. So really, we're looking at construction damage along the outer perimeter for the sidewalk systems, and obviously when we have to excavate out areas for the new infield mix. So we'll have kind of like a spider effect like this just along the perimeter. And then we're hoping, as best as possible, we'll go, just like at your dog park, we're going to have to reconstruct some of the sprinkler systems here because we're kind of flipping this around as what we originally planned. So we'll be trenching across the turf. But the sprinkler system is designed so that we can add an unlimited amount of sprinkler valves, so we can actually put some temporary irrigation out there and run that while we're under construction, and hopefully minimize the amount of downtime and minimize our costs as far as reestablishing a lot of acreage of grass. So that's kind of been worked into the bid spec. Our hope is to get the majority of this turf salvaged and then just have to repair the ones that are obviously near the sidewalks and grading operations.
And between those two fields, are you now going to have a little cement going east-west between them, I'm assuming?
Yes, it'll come through here, and basically, my sons spent quite a few times in their youth playing baseball, so we have areas and bleachers prepared for both sides of these fields for the parents, away from the kids, and then we also are providing actually small-sized bullpens for the kids to warm up. The fencing will be the 10-foot height, which allows us pure safety for independently of who's warming up in the dugout and protects anybody walking along the sidewalk system. And then those enclosures are along the edges here, and that basically is a mirror image for both sides. This side, obviously, because it serves an older age group, is a little bit longer. But what I'm trying to do is, as we come along here, we're also preparing a small concrete pad at the end of that so that you can put a small storage structure there and store the bases, the rakes, everything else that you would need to. Typically, most pony groups will purchase like a tough shed or something like that and put them out there. We're just providing a pad. It's just a pad. So, and then that mirror image will go along in that direction. So both of these areas will be prepared for sidewalk systems, places to sit. The dimensions will accommodate wheelchairs, so when you do have ADA benches there, there'll be plenty of room for that, and also plenty of room for the kids to move in and move out without walking over each other.
Okay, thank you. And my second question was going to be, why is our cement cost so high? But you've just answered it, of course, because there's a lot more cement out here than I originally thought. I'm not complaining, but I'm just saying, but that explains why the cement costs in here are so high, estimates.
As part of everything, the costs of all building construction things are up. The economy's up, it's up, and there's a lot of issues with that.
Right. Okay, thank you very much.
Elaine.
Jay, the pitching mound for Pinto, 38 or 40? We need to move it to 40.
Okay.
Okay.
How I've structured this, Elaine, because the pony folks are constantly tweaking their spec.
Are you blaming me?
No.
Oh, okay.
But what I do is, and what we've prepared in the specifications is, the general contract under our direction will be preparing the baseball fields and providing nothing more than a level area for the pitching mound.
Okay.
Parks is going to actually construct the mounds themselves to the latest and greatest spec, and that prevents any kind of wasted time and overbidding on something that so that's been accommodated by the fact that we're basically giving them everything but the pitching mounds.
Okay. I have a quick question, and it's probably in here, but I want you to explain it. How far out is that fencing going to go between the two fields, between the Pinto and Mustang field?
Between the two?
Yeah. How far is that fencing, that permanent fencing, going to go?
It goes out almost to the point of, I'm going to say approximately right there.
Okay.
It basically almost separates you into two worlds.
Okay.
And it's open on the home run fence is now, this is now an arc that goes that way.
Right.
And that's open to the sidelines for the players to access. We just have, the only thing that you have in between this is the two bullpens.
Right.
And that fencing basically separates the two groups.
Right. So it's my understanding, and I'm going to look at Mary now, it's my understanding with Camarillo Pony Baseball that the outfield fence will be temporary so that we can utilize it for other activities during their off season. Am I correct? Or is that going to be permanent like we've got it over on the other side for the other 5 fields?
Well, as far as my base bid goes, I've had them include a permanent arc 5-foot fence with a yellow protective cover.
Okay.
It can be deleted.
Okay. Okay. Well, I think that the board might want to look at that, but that's something that we can look at. So thanks for clarifying that.
Sure.
Okay. Bob, you want me to go? Yeah.
I'm interested. I'm not sure I quite understand I know this Pinto field's going to move, and there's going to be an effect in the lighting, I assume, where the poles are going to go and so forth.
Yes.
First of all, just to make sure that you said there were going to be 2 new poles.
Yes.
Okay, and then we're going to use some of the old poles that are out there.
Yes.
And are they going to be the same height?
They are going to be, I think, slightly taller. There's essentially what we're going to have is as everything that on a renovation project you might run into, some of the poles that are there are not official Musco poles. Because Musco works on Musco equipment, they won't give us a quote on moving or relocating those because we don't know how they were constructed and how old they were and so forth. The cheapest way out for all of us is to use the Musco fixtures, reposition a pole slightly over, and then take some of the fixtures off the poles and position them closer to the fields. And that, in that perspective, we can save a lot of money by using the existing pole that they're not warrantying, basically, or familiar with using, as well as adding a new pole to include the illumination that we need to make the foot candles safe for evening play for kids. And baseball has a very high luminance because obviously you're playing baseball.
I've played under practice lights before, so
you're familiar with
yes.
So essentially, the height of this is all per spec for the age group. It's not going to be per spec for an adult field, and we don't have that because of this lower lighting existing over here. The poles that, if you go out and notice what we did on the first phase, they're extremely high. I had to go to the FAA and get approval from the airport to put those in. So now that we have that, we can put poles in that high anywhere we want out there. And essentially what we're going to use is poles that are satisfactory for our budget purposes to handle Pinto and baseball. We're not going to have adult play out here, so we're just addressing this age group.
Will the new poles have to work simultaneously in order to provide light for instance, one field?
Well, the way that the circuits are, and we turned on all the circuits, and I tried to estimate where the existing conduits are because we are drilling so many holes in the ground for fencing. Right now, the switchboard for this is all back over here, kind of right around there.
Mm-hmm.
And there's an existing conduit that runs the existing light fixtures all the way around in a sequence like this and terminates here. So there are no pull boxes there. So it literally goes from conduit to pole to pole to pole to pole to pole, and then a direct pull all the way back to the switch box. So what we had to do is when we added these light fixtures here, we ran the conduits to address these very, very large poles, and we also pulled extra ones to this point. One to service the future scoreboards and also to service the electrical lights that we planned on putting here. So we thought this one and this one at the time would be satisfactory, but when LaMusco redid their calculations, we needed to illuminate another pole here and one more over here to make these areas light enough for the children to play. So when the light switches come on now, this historical one will always be the same. We're just connecting. We're basically putting another pole in this sequence and moving some of the fixtures that are on this thing over to this one to illuminate this field. So the power source remains the same. I don't really have to change anything as far as electrical wiring in there. That can all just remain the same. The new poles will be here and over here. These two items here are going to be connected to our last switch pair here. So these lights can come on and illuminate this side, and then these lights come on and illuminate this. This is a different switch that does this field, and this old one does around this outer perimeter. So to answer your question, there's a couple switches that light both sides of the fields, but it is broken up to some degree to be somewhat cost effective, but because of the older system, a lot of the field turns on.
I see. My question is about not building more fields like we have in the past, where only one field is going to be used and you have to light up three.
Right. No, it's about as compartmentized as we can get based on refurbishing what's there and not costing an arm and a leg to go back and
I see.
Just to break up a couple lights.
So you guys have thought of that, and you've engineered it the best you can.
We've tried to get it as cost effective. I'm a taxpayer here myself, so I want to get.
We appreciate those taxes too.
Yeah, I want to be as efficient as I possibly can with this, but on the same perspective, to relamp and rewire this whole thing would take this budget to a new level. So this is as cost effective as we can get this thing in a reasonable expense.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Okay. Dr. Dixon.
Yeah, I have a couple questions for Jay, but most of mine are going to be for Mary. But first of all, the access to the parking lot off the highway is passed right to the left of our screen, right?
Along Pleasant Valley Road, you mean?
Yes.
Yes.
So
there's that alley.
Now, is there going to be any protection for cars along there for foul balls coming over that fence?
No. Other than the backstops. I mean, we have our backstops that are, in our half-moon positions. Right here, on the adult field, we have the giant net fence that comes along here in an attempt to protect this. What we have here in the young boy field is just the traditional prefabricated backstop that is purchased, and then we're going to have the 10-foot fencing that extends out from that to enclose the bullpen, the dugout, and then terminating at the end with a little pad of concrete for storage. So we don't have any netting, we don't have any extended fencing other than the actual backstop itself.
Can I just add one comment there for Neil? This for everybody's information and the public and stuff. That road that we're talking about right there along the left side, right off the edge of the map here, that comes in off Pleasant Valley Road. In case people don't know, our park district owns that public road. We're probably one of the few special districts in the county that actually owns a public road. We receive no funding for resurfacing it, like the city and the county does, but we own a public road. So I'm just saying that's our public road. So if we wanted to put in no parking signs there or something, that's something we can discuss in the future if that came up.
Well, I don't know if they're parking so much the issue, though. There's going to be, during an active time of play when all the fields on this complex are being used, you can imagine there's going to be a pretty continuous stream of cars coming up and down that road, right. And kids hit foul balls, and whether their cars are parked or moving, they're going to be moving is probably even a greater danger issue.
The only thing that you have along here that is potentially to our favor is that, this is offset maybe, I'm going to say plus minus about 30 feet, and then along the actual driveway itself, there's a row of existing trees. So there is some, let's call it informal protection. It's not necessarily wide open, but to answer your question, foul balls are foul balls in a baseball park, and there's no way of knowing when a kid's going to hit it, miss it, go over the backstop, and right out into the street.
Is there any mechanism for putting up some netting just along that might create some greater protection? I foresee that being a problem. Probably, people are going to be hitting foul balls every game, and there's going to be cars on that. Right. That are going to be in the way. It's not as if we can say don't park there. That is pretty much the access to the parking.
Yeah, to answer your question, there's always a possibility of adding netting. The netting costs right now are actually more expensive than chain link. I don't know why, but they are. Mm-hmm. What we would have to do is a similar design as we did before, with the high post going down into the earth. There's about a 10 or 12 foot embedment on those posts that go up about 30 feet, and then we would run the netting along the side of that, and that would be an extensive expense. That'd be a significant expense. We'd have to span this area, half the distance of the baseball areas right now. So, to answer your question, yes, it is possible, but it would definitely impact our budget.
I don't know what the laws are in terms of liability for the kind of damage that can occur for this sort of thing, but we are designing this with our only access to that parking lot. Only the most commonly used access anyway is going to be right there. So I don't know whether Mary, whether that's something do we need to consider that? Do we need to consider talking to our lawyers about whether there's a liability issue there or not? Or
We can do that. The other thing is, since we own it, we can also close that road as well.
Now that would leave the only access then coming in over closer to the airport then.
I wish actually Lanny were here right now, because I think most of the people that use that access point right now is probably RC. Because that road is in horrible shape. Mm-hmm. So there's not a lot of people that use it except for a cut through. If we repair it, I would say that we'd probably have a lot more people that are using it, but I can definitely have a conversation with the attorneys of what our liability would be if there's foul balls if we construct this.
Mm-hmm. Okay. The other thing is, you mentioned it earlier about flooding in that area. Is there anything we're doing to mitigate flooding problems there?
No, this has been, basically watersheds protection districts, natural bioswale historically for the entire airport area. The watershed drains across the airport and then ports out on many different locations along this piece of the property. And the problem is that the only thing that drains this is that earthen channel adjacent to Pleasant Valley Road. That's the historical drainage pattern, and it goes to the Barranca heading toward Oxnard. So in order for flood control to widen that, they would have to excavate miles down to the Oxnard Barranca to alleviate the possible flooding potential. So we can't change any of this historical piping underneath the driveway or anything, because basically what we would do is take the flooding that's been occurring on public property historically and transferring it over to the farmer's property, which typically doesn't go over well. So basically we can't really change anything in that perspective. So that's why this area is basically determined. You can't build on it. You can't do anything as far as residential things. This is our, as far as the airport and the rest of the county is concerned, this is their way where they take water, it floods back, it back floods up, and basically bioswales or drains itself back down into the water table. So there's nothing we can do historically.
Okay. Just have to wait. So if we have late March and April type rains, we potentially have these fields closed for significant periods of time when that happens.
Absolutely, yeah, no question.
Okay. Mary, ask you some questions? Tell me again what the situation is with the current baseball fields that we have and our relationship with the schools and our access to those fields. What limitations of access do we have?
So right now, with the switch in schools, so the schools made the determination last spring that they had two schools that were flipping locations. So the current school that is moved, the school that was at Bedford, has now moved to the one at Temple. And the reason for that is it's a transitional K through 8th grade. So they're seeing growth with all the development that is going on. So with that development and their schools starting to expand, they had to move that school over to that location. So with that, having conversations with the school district, what they're looking at right now is probably not major changes, but what they have been able to tell me is right now they've had to lock the school down. So in the past, we and or Pony have been able to be on the school site from 7 a.m. to 3, which means we've been able to go out and do maintenance. We've also been able to help and assist with the irrigation system. At this point, we can't do that until after 3 p.m. Anybody that's on that site has to be fingerprinted through them, and they have to know when you're on that site. Secondly, the conversation that we've had a little bit with the school district is what they can't tell me is 2 years down the road or even next year that they won't turn some of that area into a track, football field, soccer field because of the fact that you're now dealing with the junior high. So right now, I can't tell you, and neither can they, that they what area we'll be able to use and what we won't. This year, it appears that we can use most of it. Looks like right now, potentially of a Shetland field right now may be out of play, but I can't tell you next year that we won't have another Shetland or a Mustang or a Pinto field that may be out of play. And part of that is due to the fact that school is growing. The other part is they are also looking with the bond that they got is to refurbishing and doing some of those stuff. So I think they're still working on what that plan looks like.
So the fields, so right now we don't see any immediate impact on our access to the fields other than the 7 to 3 period that we can't actually do maintenance on weekdays.
Which actually is right now, that's a pretty significant, because right now that's when they do a lot of the maintenance, because then you have Saturdays and Sundays. When you start to go in, when we start to lose daylight, that leaves them a very limited period of time that they'll be able to go in and do maintenance. So we're starting to see some of that. I can't tell you to the extent, but we are starting to see changes with the way that site looks. The other change that we're having a conversation with, because the other thing we have to do is actually sit down and look at the MOU. And part of looking at the MOU that we have at that site is currently, the district has a huge portion of the facility that we're actually paying water for. AYSO pays a portion of the water, and then the school district gives us $10,000 on an annual basis. But if they're going to start to use more of that, then the question is who's going to take care of that? Who's going to be in charge of water? Who's going to fix all of those things? So those are all things that we're starting to have conversations with, because I don't know that the district wants to take on all that water responsibility if they're now starting to take portions of that site and now flipping that and using it for their after-school programs, football, soccer, whatever that looks like. So I think right now it's a little bit up in the air. I think we've probably got probably 6 months to a year before we know exactly what it looks like, but I think part of that is there is a transition.
Have they discussed with you the possibilities or probabilities of converting those fields into a football field or or soccer fields, or is it speculation?
That's actually a conversation we've had with them.
And they've indicated that that's their intent?
The indication is that there's a high probability that could happen.
And
they haven't said 90%, 70%, but what they have said is there's a high probability, if that continues to be a junior high school, that they will need to have some of those facilities available on their site to be able to offer other types of athletic at the junior high.
And what have they indicated to what extent that would eliminate fields that we're using? It's going to depend on where they put it, but what I would look at is probably the potential of 2 to 3.
that would eliminate, which means a lot of your younger kids, which is a lot of the Shetland, which is probably the highest and largest. Shetland's probably the largest group right now.
It is 22 teams.
So, and I know I've had actually had a conversation with Johnny, who's the president, who has concerns with that as well. So his fear is right now in the fall, it's not a big deal. In the spring, it's going to be a pretty big deal, and it's going to be a bigger deal if they can't get on the site until after 3 o'clock when they're trying to have baseball and they're trying to do practice. So where do all those kids go? And I think part of what they're afraid of is now they're going to have to go to various other schools and don't know how much availability those other schools have currently. If Lanny were here, he'd probably have a better idea since he deals with those on a consistent basis.
So we're currently looking at replacing one Mustang, one Pinto, and one Shetland field with the potential loss of what fields, of how many?
Over there, like I said, it could be potential. Well, we could gain some here and lose 3 potentially over there. And like I said, I don't have all the specifics, but what you're looking at is kind of where down on that would be on the southern end, closest to the school is where some of that would look at. But if they're going to put a football field or track in, you're probably looking at a good portion kind of down the middle. So we may end up only having 3 fields out there, not including ours.
Okay. Now, in the past, they were looking at spending a lot of money on lighting. I think it's $118,000. Is that, or maybe more?
About 118.
118,000 is. In the past 30 or so years that I've been here, Shetland and Pinto and Mustang have played on non-lighted fields. Is this not standard? Are most communities providing lighted fields for 8 and 9 and 10-year-olds to play baseball?
I'd love to tell you that I know what all other communities do. We'd probably have to look at what that looks like, but I think part of it also depends on what access they have to fields. Mm-hmm. So also depends on the number of teams. All of those things are also going to depend on where you have practices, who your partners are, where your parks are. I think all of those things are going to be dependent upon the communities in which they live.
Mm-hmm. Have we gotten a lot of like say, it's been many, many years that that we have not been provided lighting fields for this level of play. Have we been getting a lot of pushback from parents that their kids can't play later into the night in those age groups? I don't know if you probably can't answer these questions.
I don't have those answers regarding not being able to have lighted fields and such. What I can tell you though is depending on the number of fields we have, a lot of it's going to come down to practices. So on Saturdays and Sundays, it may not be as big a deal, but during the week and before you have daylight savings or before the hours start to change and you have longer days, you may only be able to get 1 game in. So I know that was an issue just talking to Johnny this past year when we had so much rain in the spring. Because they didn't have the opportunity to have lights, they were playing double headers, which then gets you into issues with how often the kids can pitch. So I know there was a whole series of issues that kind of arose from some of that. Now I know that was an odd year, but I think it offers lights offer a little bit more availability as well as practice game times and some of those type of activities.
Now, the space we're talking about building on is not space that's currently unused, correct?
Correct.
There are user groups that are using those.
Correct.
And they use the lights. They use the lighted part of those fields.
Yeah, we have user groups that use that end, and we have user groups that use the other end. And usually during the fall, as we go into fall, they'll use that end and typically need lights.
Okay. So the other end is unlighted.
Correct.
Okay. So those groups will be displaced.
Potentially. I know that Director Magner also said depending on if you put permanent fencing or don't put permanent fencing up there. So if you don't put permanent fencing, then we have the opportunity still to use some of the outfields for other types of activity.
During the non-baseball season?
Correct.
And now baseball is running both fall and spring leagues.
Yes.
Okay. So what would we anticipate that they would be using these fields for both a fall and a spring league?
They're currently using both sites right now for fall and spring.
So would that would be pretty limited access then in terms of another group wanting to use those fields? It would have to be during the seasons when it's fall baseball and spring baseball are not playing.
Potentially, I'd also have to see what days of the week that they're playing in the fall. So I couldn't tell you how many days in the fall that they're playing. I don't have that schedule, but I can get it.
Okay. And the user groups that have been displaced, has there been any discussion with them as to what the impact this is going to have on their programs and what other options we have available for them for lighted fields?
Not as of yet, being that we haven't approved this process yet. I know that we've had some discussion with some of the groups. I mean, one of the groups, even though, so for instance, I know you're looking at lights, but there's also groups that use that don't use lights. So even for those groups, that there's some displacement. So like for all the dog agility, right now what we have is they can use the west end, the east end, or the community center. So now what we end up doing is looking at the east end or the community center.
Okay. You know, I'm apologize for putting you on the spot with all of this stuff, but I do have some issues with this whole thing. Is that a lot of the stuff with going on with the schools is stuff that we haven't really fully discussed with them, and so we don't know I don't know that we know exactly what's going to happen with our access to the current baseball fields that we have. So we're acting on speculations and of what fields we might lose. We're then taking away fields that other user groups are using, and if they need lighted fields, I'm not sure that we have another option for them. About the only other locations we have are Mission Oaks and PV Fields, which I don't know that there's a whole lot of open space on those for these other groups to use, and the project is $1 million, and so if we're going to be spending $1 million on this project, I would want to, number one, be certain that we need it, and number two, just for fairness to the other groups, that we have some reasonable accommodation for them for taking away the access that they have to those fields. Lighted fields are a premium, and there's just not a lot of them around. And I think it's only fair that groups that have been using these fields and depend on them for their programs would have some access to some alternative. So I think that those before I would feel comfortable moving forward on this, I think those are the issues that need to be addressed, and some certainties as to whether or not this project is absolutely needed or not. I know that it's been in the works for many, many years. Long ago, these fields were designed and planned, but times change, and just because they were designed and planned many years ago doesn't absolutely mean that we have to go forward with them. I'm not saying I'm absolutely opposed to it, but I think that we have an obligation to the taxpayers and to other user groups to be certain that this is something that we really need, especially for $1 million.
I understand. I do want you to know, though, we've had at least 2 conversations with the school district, and the school district right now cannot guarantee that we will not lose fields.
But they've also not said that they're guaranteeing that we are going to lose fields. Yeah.
They've guaranteed right now that we can't get in there from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. They've taken one Shetland field away, and what they can't tell me right now is that in a year from now, that they may not be building a baseball, or not a baseball, they won't be building a football field and a track.
Okay.
So that they won't. So if they decide to do it in a year, then we're back here, and I think that's part of the issue. I know that the other thing that has kind of popped up is that we've had conversations. I know that we had conversations with Miracle League, and I know that Miracle League is talking with the school district of potentially putting one of their fields over at Bob Kildee as well. So because the other side of that school is for special needs, so I know that they're trying to look at the highest and best use. So even though it may be what our highest and best use is, it may not be what the school district's highest and best use is. And that's in kind of exactly what they've kind of had the conversation with Pony. I had, who was it, Johnny and Alex were sitting there, so was Bob and so were I, is that I'm not going to tell you I'm going to take it away, but I'm not going to tell you in 2 years you're going to have this space. What I'm telling you is we're moving our junior high, and we're going to use it for what we need, what we think we need, and for the school district has got to be their number one concern.
So I understand that we have this uncertainty that what might happen a couple of years down the line. But I guess on the opposing argument to that might be that if we don't do this right now, the land will still be there in 2 years, and if we wanted to do it then, we could do it then. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Elaine, do you have any?
Yes, I do have some comments, and they're directed to everybody. So the Shetland Field has been taken completely down and is not in use anymore and will never be in use again. Camarillo Pony Baseball has 22 teams, or had 22 teams this year that used that field. So that field is completely gone now. They also took down the practice backstop. It is now completely gone in the middle. That would probably the two Pinto fields, which are, as you guys have had the conversation with the school district, would be the next two taken. And those would take out probably field space for over 500 players. They've already run into the issue that the fields can only be maintained during the week, not on the weekends, because they play on the weekends. And it's impossible for them to maintain those fields an hour a day. So that's kind of where the issue is right now. Camarillo Pony Baseball, the majority of the players are at the Shetland and Pinto age groups, the 5, 6, 7, and 8-year-old age groups, and that would completely leave them without any fields whatsoever. If the new fields are built, they will be able to play the Shetland on these fields. Camarillo Pony Baseball has never used outfield fences with the exception of on BK1, which is owned by the Park District. They've never used outfield fences in the fall ball. I'm sure that you would work something out with them for that. I think we need to move forward with it. I hate to see our kids not have a place to play, and especially when it's entry-level kids. Once you lose them, you've lost them forever. They will not come back to the sport at the ages of 8, 9, and 10. It just doesn't happen. So I strongly suggest that we move forward with this project. I've talked with the school district myself. I know who's been working on it, and he seems very certain that those other two bottom fields will be gone next year at this time. So. He doesn't not sure what they're going to put there, but he's sure that those two fields will be gone. So that will be no Pinto fields for Camarillo Pony Baseball, no Shetland or Pinto fields. So I strongly suggest we move forward.
Can I just ask Elaine a question? Follow-up. So are you telling, I'm just trying to understand, are you saying these two proposed fields do not need or do not require the outer fence, what do you call it?
For fall ball, they do not. But for spring ball, which is about 10 to 12 weeks, they would.
And why is that? I'm just curious.
Well,
why is that?
that's the regular.
Soccer kids out there practicing.
Yeah,
that's why.
fall.
Okay. So it's because of the soccer joint use.
Right.
It's not because of. I was asking within the program. I'm trying to figure out within the program.
Lighted fields are so precious in the fall because
No. Yeah, I understand that part.
And we've always worked very, very well with ASO and soccer in allowing them to use those fields.
Yeah.
So we've taken down the fences in the fall.
So it's a joint use issue.
It's a joint issue thing. And I'm sure that Camarillo Pony Baseball would feel the same way about these fields, that it's joint use. It's lights. You know, we've got the football kids and we've got soccer. I see Brian out there, so yes, we've got soccer that we need to have out there. So I don't think there would be an issue with Camarillo Pony Baseball not
Having permanent fencing.
saying to Mary,
And
we'll
this
take them
grass-
down.
And this grass historically, because it has real soil and real water, actually grows very well out here. It can take a lot of beating.
It has
compared
plenty
to
of
other-
water, right, Jay?
So compared, yeah. Thank you.
I'm sorry, could I ask another question? Wait, I mean, why did we choose west as opposed to the east for these fields? Because since we do have a flooding issue on the west side, do we have a flooding issue on the east side too? Is it equally a problem over there?
No, it basically, this corner begins here and the flooding heads toward the parking lot. The reason that these fields were elected was the fact that these could be relatively easily converted into lighting, where the other side has no lighting infrastructure at all.
Okay.
Also, I don't believe the fields will fit in the other side without us getting rid of that parking lot. And that was what was first in the master plan.
There's infrastructure changes that would have to occur. The parking lot configuration that's already in existence on the opposing side would have to be modified to fit those fields to their spec. So there'd be, not only is there the lighting issue, but there's a lot of infrastructure in the asphalt and removal and redesign of that whole parking lot.
If the fences don't go up, is there enough room for other, like whoever's out there now, soccer and whoever's out there, to practice? The way that the field's going to be configured? Even with no fences?
If the home run fences are, just put up temporarily with temporary fence, you would have basically two halves that you could use. And you're looking at basically, this one. Oh, no, wrong one. Okay, here we go. Is it that one? Yeah, okay. What you would have is, this area here will be bisected by basically the bullpens and the dugouts and so forth in this direction, that both of these fields will share this line segment. So this is going to be the infield area here, so you would have this outer area out here and this outer area out here. But there will be basically an obstruction there. You'll have basically concrete and fencing going out to about like there.
Could that be put somewhere else, or is it necessary to have it right there?
I typically, when you're playing Little League with this age group, generally speaking, the coaches will go over and watch the children warm up. This is a place where they loosen up their arms and go into play.
Mm-hmm.
So we're sharing the concrete pad right here, so it keeps things very cost effective here. If we already have one on this side for the opposing team, each team gets their own little rectangle, so to speak. So the only way I could do that would be to outstretch them out here along the perimeter, and that means the kid would be out of sight, basically, from the coaches and the parents as they walk over here to. Typically, not something that you see very often in a baseball complex.
Okay, I think we all have a clear understanding of what the project is. I have two cards from the public that would like to speak. We'll start with Brian Monka.
Thanks, guys, for letting me speak. Mr. Chairman and the board and the staff. Brian Monka, 1793 Wolverton Avenue. Actually, just coming and listening has been very informative to me. So a lot of my questions were actually answered in terms of, I run a soccer organization that actually uses those fields, and those lights are precious to us because there's really no other lighted fields that we can use. So that's why I came in here, just to express that in case nobody or anyone didn't know that. It's actually really important for us. From basically September, we're going to be switching over to those fields as of next week. and basically using those all the way through March until the time changes again. So that's important to us. Our older teams that range from, when I say older, I mean basically like 11 and older, use those fields. And so that's an important amount of space. It just barely kind of fits in maybe 3 older groups out of that space right now. And not that I have anything against baseball. I mean, I think baseball is great. I think that it would actually impact us because even if there were, like we were saying, the alternatives are great. I like how we're looking into them. No fencing. It would definitely limit the space that we were able to use. And so I guess, some of the questions I had before this presentation was given was, hey, like, what is the time frame for this? What kind of impact would it have in terms of, displacing maybe us? I know football uses it too. So those are type of things that I was interested in. I can see, like maybe the other side as well. Freedom East was always open. It's not quite as long. I think it's actually wider than that space is. I can fit a full soccer field basically out there if you squeeze it in. So those are some of the things I was just concerned with. I know I don't have a lot of time, but I think that all these guys, have addressed a lot of the things that I had questions about. So I guess my main concern would be what would be the plan for, my organization that's been using those fields for going on 4 or 5 years now, where we would be able to go in case that this does go forward, and then looking at time frame for that. So those are basically, my thoughts, and just wanted to express that and wanted to say thank you for letting me speak and taking the time here to hear what I have to say. Okay? Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Brian. As you can tell, we're already real concerned about that sort of thing. So we have a lot of groups here, and everything has a ripple effect. And when the school district decides that they want to take out the lion's share of the core facility we've had our baseball program in for 40 years, it's definitely going to have some impacts.
Can I say
one other comment, public comment? Bob Aaron. Bob? Your turn.
I think it was Winston Churchill who said, "He also serves who stands and waits." Remember that from World War II? Bob, remember that?
Vaguely.
Vaguely. Anyway, just popped in my mind. I haven't thought about that forever. Anyway, yeah, I had a couple things, and I left the darn thing on the floor here. It's on this issue. It really starts in my thinking with who uses this. Who is going to use it? We have a mission statement because it clearly states that we do this and that and the other thing for the people of the district. And we are now going through a series of meetings, and Mike's a part of it, and hashing out who can use what fields and when. And as it turns out, wow, we have some fields and some organizations that are well in excess of 50%, and in my thinking they ought to be down to around maybe 90% of local people, because that's the charge that we have. And I would ask you to take that into consideration. As I look at the board, I think, wait a minute, how can these people, not pointing any fingers at anybody, but you put your life into this thing, and now we're asking you to step aside and make objective decisions about what fields are used for what organizations and all. It's impossible. So what do we do about that? What do you do about it? Maybe we could ask you to recuse yourself on certain issues. There's other options, of course, but please give that some thought, because that's what this is all about. This is all about limited resources and serving a public of, in rough numbers, 70,000 folks. And right now, we do a terrible job at that. And we do a wonderful job at other things, on the specialty issues. But you're familiar, of course, with the term opportunity cost. Everything has a cost, not just a dollar cost. But if you don't spend time and energy on this, then you can't spend it on that, because there's no such thing as being in more than one place at one time. I'd ask you to read the book by short story by Edgar Allan Poe. It's called The Mask of the Red Death. If you would read that, it won't take you long. And I think about it, and I've thought about it the first time I came to one of these meetings about 7 years ago, and it just kind of rings true to me as to how we can fall into a trap if we allow it. And I think we're falling into traps here, not just on this issue but others. We're here to serve the public. So, and you do a great job in many areas, and I thank you for that, and I congratulate you on your successes. I just ask you to, step away from where you are, and look at everybody else and what they want to. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Aaron. Okay, I have no other cards, so let's get back to the actual decision to be made to approve the plans and specifications. Now, it seems to me that there's a sense that we need to take the permanent outfield fence out, because that is how it's designed now, correct, Jay? You have the outfield fence is designed to be permanent?
Right now on the bid specifications, the outfield fence is part of the primary bid, but we can delete it from the specifications pretty easily.
Okay. Okay. Do I have agreement on that? Or you want to discuss it? I mean, we can discuss it if you want to.
Since we don't have like a final of exactly what this is going to look like.
Well, the contractor proposed making a beautiful color rendering of what it was going to look like, but a certain board member didn't want to spend the money.
But we do have,
and so therefore we don't have a bunch of pretty pictures of exactly what it looks
right
like.
over here. No, I'm
Thanks
serious.
for setting me up on that one.
Mary said we have the drawings available. If you want to,
right.
If for some reason we want to go over and lay them out on a table and look at them, we can't.
No, I was thinking like something like this. It could even be hand-drawn, just so I know exactly where everything is. Because it doesn't do any good to take the fence out if it's not usable for the other intended purposes, is what I'm getting at.
Well, as you already know, from back in your ASO days, at the temple site, whatever, I'm not even sure what it was called out there. Or did they have a name for it? It used to be called Los Altos.
Well, now it's Arts and Engineering.
Is what? Oh, okay. So it had the new school name, whatever it is, site. The ASO currently practices in between wherever the softball stuff is. So it's obviously not perfect, as you already know, and we all know in soccer. Obviously, if you have the bigger the green space, the easier it is to do a practice thing. But you can fit practice into wherever it's available. And so taking out the outside fence will simply allow more green space to be potentially available for potential practice.
But what I'm getting at is that Brian doesn't have AYSO recreational where you can where the dad's coaching and you can kind of just get out there and kind of do whatever you happen to have. He's got older kids and they need a certain amount of room. So I'm just asking, if we don't have the permanent fence, is there enough room for somebody else to use it? That's what I'm asking, and I don't know that is the case.
Let me see if I can, so right here, Director, my mic on. So this field is actually the correct layout. So I think what Jay was saying is this is where you'll have a fence line and this is where you have a fence line.
Mm-hmm.
This is all the infield. So this green space, if they don't have this, if this fence is not up, now you have all of this green space in here to be able to use. So,
But how much is that, is what I'm getting at.
Jay, do you know, or Matt or Bob, do you know exactly how much?
If that's an issue, we can go over and look at these plans, and they have a scale on there, and it's drawn to scale, and I can within 10 to 20 or 30 seconds, I can tell you what the answer is.
Let's do it.
If you want to do that.
Yeah.
But I also want to say, before we do that, I'd be happy to do that. I have coached many teams, including high school age teams, including at the Camarillo High School teams, and at the old site over here we're talking about off of Temple there, I have had high school kids out there practicing and had good practice. I mean, so I've done that. I've actually taken my high school age players over to Mission Oaks Park, where the dog park area is today, where all those trees are and the hills and stuff. I had practices in there. So, I mean, you can do it. So I'm not saying it's perfect. I'm not saying it's perfect, but I'm saying I've been able to do that, and I had very good practices, and our team went to California playoffs and stuff.
I'm not arguing for one side or the other. I'm just trying to find out information. Elaine, you suggested taking the fence out. I hadn't even considered it until you mentioned that. So what I'm getting at is this something where a deal can be made? Or is it going to radically change what we originally intended to do?
No, there is room there for Camarillo Pony Baseball and for PVRPD to come to an agreement of fencing. They put up the temporary fences at the old Los Altos fields every spring, and when soccer is done, and then when summer is done, they take them down so soccer can use them again. I've been out there when football has been out there, when Cougars has been out there, and they divide their, and they have all age groups, they divide their groups into 4 groups. And he usually uses that top group for the older kids and then puts the 3 younger groups, or 3 younger age groups along the bottom, which that would fit in there perfect for Cougars. Now, I don't know how Brian does his soccer out there, but I would think that they're the same age group as Cougars is, and if Cougars can fit 4 practice fields out there, I'm sure that Brian can probably do 2 or 3, you know, and still utilize those lights. Because that's the important thing, is the utilization of those lights. Those fields are very important to everybody with those lights, as you know.
Of course, because we've had such a cultural change where when I was young, I used to put my mitt on my handlebar and drive a mile or 2 to practice. Yeah. And we could start practice at 4 o'clock because my dad didn't have to come home and take me because I could go on my own. Now what happens, every kid that shows up at practice has to be brought by their parent, and they generally don't get off work until 5, and they're not home by at least 5:30. And so it almost, especially in the wintertime, necessitates practice being with lighted fields, which of course just also happens to be the thing that is the most scarce in the city. And it's only going to get worse as we keep getting more and more high-density housing, more and more kids, and the money that we get when these housing projects go in is really nice, and I like it, and we spend it wisely, and we get the most mileage that we can out of it. It's never enough in order to counterbalance the increase in the number of kids who are going to be out here needing a place to play their sport. And I see a day of reckoning coming where we are just like the Valley, where there's lawsuits about everything and anything. And so I know this particular little soapbox speech is probably not going to go anywhere, but I'm looking around and just seeing the no yards buildings that we are planting in this city.
And it's causing exactly this problem. Maybe not exactly causing the problem, but it's close enough. My initial impression is if we needed to do this to build the baseball fields, which were always intended and which I have been in support of, that we just go ahead and do it because that's what we intended to do all along. Tonight is the first night that I've heard that there could be some way of doing it where there is some amount of compromise that could be had. And so what I would like to hear is if anybody even can do this, is to make the case against this so that I can hear what they have to say.
Do you still want to look at the plans or not?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, you know, we've been 2 hours and 40 minutes, and at my age, we need a timeout a bit about that time point. So let's take a recess, and you guys can look at the plans. And you know, I'm familiar with that area enough. I know there's plenty of space, but you guys go ahead and look at the plans. When we come back in to decide the matter, then everybody will know what they need to know. So we're in recess for. Verizon says, or T-Mobile says it's 8:40, so we're in recess until 8:50. And where we ended with was me making my comments, which I haven't on this topic, and I'll be very brief, and because I think we've talked about everything pretty thoroughly. The one concern Dr. Dixon raised was about the foul ball issue. The two fields, the Pinto and Mustang Field along Temple Avenue at formerly Los Altos School, are closer to the street than these fields will be to the fence. There are no trees protecting from foul balls, and there's trees on both sides of the fence here. So there's like two sets of trees and then the street. So there's actually protection to like the equivalent of beyond the middle lane of Temple. So it's, you know, there's actually considerably more foul ball space. You know, what worries me more about foul balls is kids wandering around, not as much cars driving, because cars tend to drive with their windows up, and it's not as big a deal. But I don't think we have any issue there. We do have an issue of when we get more traffic there, we're going to have to spend some money on that road that we own. But again, you know, it's just one of those things we have to get to. But I think the two biggest concerns that I heard about this proposal, and of course, since I drew it up on a napkin like 15 years ago, I'm extremely familiar with all of it. So, but I think those are the two concerns: is that we have year-round use, because in the fall, lighted field space for kids is super precious, and you can't get enough. And here we got a chance to add some, because we're going to be improving the lighting there for both those fields, and it'll improve it for fall use as well. So, are there any other questions or comments, Elaine?
I have comment.
Okay.
Mary, could we look at the idea of placing two light standards at the east end of one there at the corner of the parking lot outside of the Skyway room, and one up on Willis Road and behind the Officers Club, that would light that east end up?
Temporary or permanent?
Permanent.
For practice standard?
Yeah, for practice. Only for practice. It wouldn't be for...
I'd have to go back and ask Musco to see what that would look like. But that could be a phone call that we could make just to see what that would look like. The other, the other temporary solution could be looking at what light standards cost and actually getting some temporary ones until we can come up with another solution. So those could be some other things to potentially mitigate depending on if this project starts and when it starts.
Okay. Let me ask Jay something real quick. Jay, or Bob, there's no lights on those two easterly fields, am I correct? It's just the other fields. It's the three big fields that are lit currently, am I correct? Okay, and there are no light standards around the yellow?
No. When we went, just if you're looking at lighting that entire area, we actually had that conversation with Musco, and to light that area down there, if you lighted the entire thing, was over $500,000.
I remember that conversation, but I was just thinking if to give them more lighted practice, not baseball, soccer or football or whatever, that east end, if we could get them to give us some type of a price estimate, because that would also help other groups too to be able to utilize that area. The food or the dog agility, do they do anything at night?
No, theirs is usually during the day.
Okay, but that would give additional, because that after dark, that's pitch dark out there. Trust me, I come out of that Skyway room enough, and it is dark.
I could call Moscow and see if they could come out and give us a quote to see what that would look like.
Because that might be something that would
Didn't
help
we say there's no infrastructure there to even hook them up?
Presently, there isn't any, the switchboard for the entire park site
Right. Yeah, I know where it
is located over here.
Right.
Kind of across from the restroom facility. And when the park was originally designed, it was much less expensive. Originally, these were a couple softball fields, so they simply took the power and put a few lights around here and there, and that made sense, was fairly economical. I'll have to go back and check my plans, but I'm pretty sure we pulled empty conduits along here for the potential of an infrastructure add. It's what I don't know, and what we'd have to ask Musco and the electrical engineers is the existing switchboard capable of adding that much more lighting to your system? And that's something I'd have to...
What does a new switchboard cost?
I'd have to defer to electrical, a lot, it's a little bit of a hit, yeah, no question. But there's a lot of the major infrastructure is there, but we'd have to get electrical engineer or Musco to give you the equipment costs for that specific specialty thing about the lighting and how much that would cost. But I do think that we did pull some extra conduits for that future possibility. Now, whether it's enough or not, not so sure.
Well, and they wouldn't even have to be at those corners, Jay. They could be at the end of that conduit if we pulled it far enough and shot,
Mm-hmm. We did the same thing at the fields at Temple. We ran an empty conduit all the way down the middle when we did the sprinkler work for the school district years ago. And I think the park district used that to pull sprinkler wires at one point. But
okay.
We do have some minimalistic things. What's critical is you need to have Musco who will put together a kind of like a photo optic plan to tell you, because that's so dark out there. You don't even have any street lights or anything to share the lighting with. So the study would be, what kind of foot candle do you need for soccer or football evening lights? You don't need the same intensity as baseball. And then what would that cost you as a district? To how many poles would you need, and for that purpose? But I that's something that's off my list.
Okay. Well, I just thought I'd throw that out there. I'm sorry.
Well, I think $500,000 to light that whole area is a lot of money, but as I stated before, this isn't going to get better. This is only going to get worse. So,
is $500,000? Is that to light it to the specifications for baseball play? And might that be potentially less if we were to do a lower degree of lighting?
Yeah. So the $500,000 quote, when we talked to Musco, since we were out there when we were talking about those two fields, we just asked them to kind of take a look to see what that would look like. Because one of the challenges even with Veterans Field, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jay, is part of the issue you have is the outfield lights are the height they need to be, but the challenge you have is the infield lights are not where they need to be. So they left those alone, when we did the renovation, if I'm not mistaken. So they would, if we wanted to do it correctly, they would have to make some adjustments to the infield lights and then have to light those other fields. And it was approximately $500,000 to light them to the specs for baseball. That would light light all of those fields and be there'd be those other fields that are not currently lighted.
I'm sorry, which ones are not lighted?
Bob, do you have
all the yellow? Okay.
all the yellow?
Well, no, wait a minute. All the yellow don't exist. Only the two on the left exist. The two yellow fields on the right don't exist yet.
Correct.
So, yeah, those aren't.
Right. So those fields aren't currently there. But if they were going to, because we asked them if they did put those in or pulled it, if they pulled the wire, if we were going to light that, with the assumption that this plan was going to come to fruition, so you didn't end up going back and doing it 2 or 3 times, to light all of this area down here and then to light this correctly, it'd be about $500,000.
Would we end up in the same situation as we ended up out at Pleasant Valley Fields, where we can only turn a certain number of the lights on without getting that major bump in like $5,000 a month?
Well, if we redesigned that, the intent would not to be go down that route. So the intent would be as if we did that. We just asked them, this was a quick estimate of what that would potentially look like. So if we did something like that, or the board chose to do something, we'd ask them to make sure that when you turn lights on, it wasn't for 4 fields at a time.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, but also the issue we had originally was we had the 1 meter at PV Fields that did everything, and the electric company cannot give you the nighttime light unless you reach a certain percentage. You can only have a small percentage off of 1 meter for daytime use, and we couldn't demonstrate that. So we had to go out there and put in. We now have 3 different meters out there, 2 for night. The electrical pump, the pumps have 1 meter, the night lights have another meter, and then other daytime use. So now, as long as we put in the correct meters, there's no issue.
Okay.
In fact, at this site today, they're charging us as if everything is at nighttime use, because we have so small daytime use at Freedom Park. There's essentially almost nothing during the daytime. So this whole site right now is being charged as if it was nighttime use. So those issues will not exist here.
Okay. So the motion for tonight is to approve the bid specs on this project, and I think that I'd like to hear a motion that says we approve the bid specs minus the outfield fencing on those 2 baseball fields. Do I hear such a motion? Do I have to make them?
I'll make the motion, but can we put so that the outfield permanent fences are another line item if they're in there? If we decide to move forward with something else, with another idea?
Absolutely. You can pass that as a bid also.
Okay. That's how I would like to state it. Oh.
Can you
okay.
restate it, please?
I make a motion to approve the plans and specifications for Freedom Park renovation project and authorize staff to initiate the public bidding process with the caveat that there would be a line item that the outfield fences could either be permanent or temporary.
And I'll second.
Is there any further discussion of this item?
Can we still discuss this?
Yeah, we sure can.
I can make
you
one.
Want to talk about it some more?
I'd like to make one further comment. Is that I think we can do better than this. As this has been a tedious but a good discussion, and as I look at this, I think that we can do a better job of providing for the needs of the baseball leagues and providing for the needs of other users of this complex. Maybe our design should have been to push out to the east side and leave the west side, and there's a Pinto and a Shetland field that are in the future design on the east side, and maybe that would have been a better direction to go, and we could have left these lighted areas on the west. So that's my last comment. I think we could do a better job of meeting the needs of other user groups.
Are there any other comments?
Yes, I will. I'll make one and before we vote. And that is, I believe the school district, I have nothing against the Pleasant Valley Elementary School District, but they're forcing our hand. They have boxed us into a corner. We have, for all these kids playing youth baseball, boys baseball, we have to provide these facilities. We've been using the school for decades and decades and decades as our primary site, and now we're now being boxed into a corner where we have to start spending money at Freedom Park to provide these facilities, or we're going to be losing hundreds, if not hundreds of kids not playing baseball in town. So, we essentially have no choice but to move forward. Thank you.
I have one further comment also. A little while ago, we talked about one of the board members mentioned that, well, we don't really know what the school district is going to do. And that is partially true. We don't know because they haven't done it yet. However, what we do know is, and although it is not our local school district, on this particular issue, all school districts are going to line up, I believe. It's a relentless march to have the schools occupy their own space and eliminate others. That's the way it used to be. There was a state Supreme Court decision that came down that said they couldn't do that. And frankly, I don't know what happened to that decision, because all I've seen is this march towards exclusion and locked gates and a lot of rules in order to use facilities. And we've put up with them. And now, because we have this threat to our campuses because of a number of deranged individuals, the school district is going to act. I had a meeting. I discussed this a couple of meetings ago. I had a meeting with the Pleasant Valley School District, and we were talking about Valley Lindo. As you know, the Eagle Soccer Club has used Valley Lindo for many, many moons, back to 1978. And they're telling us they're putting a fence up and that there's nothing anybody can do about it. And that in that meeting, I also discerned that that was probably going to happen at all the schools. The only question about it is when. Schools take a long time, many times, to actually implement policies that are already agreed upon. The Oxnard School District is very likely going to eliminate the gym and our concurrent use. These things are happening. You'd have to be blind really not to see it. And we have to take action. And on one point by Dr. Dixon, I agree that we do have to do a better job in, especially in the field of lighting fields. I don't know how we're going to do that. The park system in Camarillo was built in a way that is not conducive to lighted fields. It's a patchwork of very small neighborhood parks, and we only have a couple of large places, and we had to fight like hell in order to get those. Believe me, Director Malloy talks about a deal put together on a napkin 15 years ago. Well, I remember that. I remember what it was like going out to Freedom Park and having little kids play in 8-inch long grass, and then having the park districts tell us at that time that it was better for the grass if they didn't cut it. So, are we doing a great job here? I think my board members are doing the best job that could possibly be done. Can we always do better? Of course. And that's why I probably made a comment tonight that everybody's probably thinking, why did he say that? When I said 500,000 doesn't seem too bad for lighting. I know lighting is more lighting is necessary because I'm looking around and seeing all these housing projects go up. There's got to be hundreds of, or if not thousands of kids in those projects. They're going to want a place to play. And as as I mentioned before, the cultural aspects of change are such that kids are going to be more likely to be practicing at night than they are in the daytime because the parents have to work in order to pay for those items. And so it's going to necessitate more lighted play. I don't think that's going to stop. I think that only gets worse. So it's just a matter of taking the bull by the horns. And yes, it may cost us some money.
Thank you, Bob. Anybody else? Mike, you've had. Okay. No further discussion. Karen, please call the roll.
Director Magner?
Aye.
Director Mishler?
Aye.
Director Dixon?
No.
Director Kelly?
Aye.
Chairman Malloy?
Aye. Motion carries 4-1. We'll move on to item 8D, since C was deleted. Consideration and approval of Pleasant Valley Aquatic Center pool shell resurfacing request proposal. Matt Parker.
Good evening, Chairman Malloy, members of the board. It's getting late, so I'll try to get through this pretty quick. Tonight before you, we're asking that the board reviews and approves the request for a proposal and technical specifications for the Pleasant Valley Aquatic Center center pool shell resurfacing and authorize staff to initiate the bid process. Pleasant Valley Aquatic Center has a 25-meter recreation therapeutic pool, which was built and opened to the public in the late 1960s. This is one of the most frequently used facilities in the district. The pool operates 7 days a week and is open approximately 15 hours a day. And it is used by thousands of people annually. The Aquatic Center has undergone renovations, many renovations and upgrades over its 50 years of operation. With most extensive renovation that we went through was in 2007 when the pool underwent a major infrastructure renovation where the plaster was completely removed and replaced along with new lane line and target tiles, wall and ladder inserts with handrails, underwater lights, coping tile, and entry stair tread tiles, along with a lot of other things. A little bit of background, more background. The life expectancy of a commercial pool is approximately, or of a pool plaster is typically around 10 years, and we have it inspected yearly by the Ventura County Environmental Health Division. The Aquatic Center's pool shell now is 11 years old and has held up pretty well up to this point. 2 years ago, inspectors noted that the pool plaster was beginning to deteriorate. In 2016, staff had noticed the plasters had started to pop off around the pool's suction inlet, underwater light niches, and stair entry tiles. Around that same time in 2016, the County Ventura Environmental Health Division had inspected the pool and had noted the deterioration of the pool plaster and the intrusion of rust from underlaying rebar on their report, and that report's in the packet. And with the direction to patch and fix those areas, since then the pool plaster's condition has worsened. And Ventura County Environmental Health Division has now put the district on a code violation notice requiring the district to resurface its pool. Some of the factors that affect the life of the pool plaster are water chemistry, maintenance program level, and the plaster mix. Here's an analysis. Staff's initial cost estimates yielded figures approximately $135,000 for standard pool plaster. However, through research, staff has learned that the cost of cement has increased by 4.5%, and prevailing wages for plaster-related labor has increased by approximately 5% since those initial estimates. And these increases will most likely cause the district to miss its budgetary target for this project. So in response to these increases, staff feels it would be appropriate to consider a fiberglass alternative pool liner, as a project cost may be more in line with the district's goals of utilizing the pool shell substrate that could potentially last 2 times longer. And here we have plasters. The standard plaster, which we have now, is like a 5 to 10 year life expectancy, and where fiberglass, they're getting from even more than 20 years. So, fiberglass is has inert properties which would reduce maintenance and chemical cost over its life. The next 2 slides are tables comparing plaster versus fiberglass to common pool conditions. So we have rough conditions. As plaster wears, the roughness increases. Chemicals will break down the plaster surface over time because of its nature and composition, minerals. Fiberglass is always smooth, no wear and tear on feet or swimsuits. It's non-porous surface, which makes it it's impermeable, so it's chemical resistant. And it also has, being that it's impermeable, it also holds heat more, so there is a potential of saving in heating costs as well. Structural cracks, plaster, any substantial pool movement can cause cracks or leaks, or fiberglass surface adds structural strength to the pool shell because it is flexible and moves with structural movement like that. Blemishes and stains, because of the porous nature, as I explained, it is subject to stains which can occur as early as when water is introduced, initially when filling a pool. And fiberglass, it's resistant to all the usual causes of stains associated with plastic because of its non-porous and nature of the composition. And here's just the pool chemical usage. Plaster has a high chemical usage because, like acids react with the concrete, so you're always having to balance that by using other chemicals to keep it in check, and so it doesn't eat away at your plaster. And whereas fiberglass, there's noticeable reduction in chemical usage due to its inert nature, and it makes pool chemicals more efficient. So you don't have, like when you have a high bather load, you're pouring in a lot of chlorine to keep it at an acceptable level for the health code. But in doing that, you raise the pH and all that, so you're having to bring it down with acid, and acid is really hard on plaster. So it makes it a little easier to balance your chemistry and save on you're not constantly having to use expensive chemicals to balance that. Like I said, it's very sensitive to chemicals. And startup, if we go forward with a project, the startup on it on plaster's complicated. You have to, there's a 2-week period where you have to be brushing every day, twice a day, and the chemical balancing is very crucial at that point. So you constantly have to be tweaking it because it's leaching out all of the stuff until it actually fully cures. So it's really difficult. And with fiberglass, it's simple, no brushing needed. You allow 24 hours for the resin to cure on your final top coat. Then you could add water and start up as normal. So it could potentially reduce the downtime that we have. Staff budgeted $135,000 to resurface the pool lining. However, due to some of the economic factors mentioned before, post-budgetary estimates for standard plaster came in at $167,000. That's in the report that I sent. Oh, I don't believe that is in the report. This was information that came after the report was written. So standard plaster came in at $167,000, and then if you want to upgrade to the high-end polished marble, it's an additional $18,000, bringing it to $185,000 to re-coat with a plaster like substrate. Where the 6-stage fiberglass pool shell came in at $160,000. So it's the fiberglass came in $7,000 just on estimates, $7,000 less than standard plaster, which only has a lifespan of 5 to 10 years. We've gotten 11 out of it, but it did start showing deterioration 2 years ago. So if we move forward with this project, the timeline would be September, that we'd send out this RFP. Pre-bid mandatory meeting would be September 18th. October 10th, bids would be due back. Give staff time to review the bids to bring it back to the board in November, and hopefully at that time award a bid. And January would be the start time with a March 1st reopening of 2019. So funding for this project is currently budgeted in this fiscal year's capital projects budget of a total of $135,000. And with this decision, there would be no fiscal impact, but just based on our estimates, it would be about $30,000 higher than we originally estimated due to some of those economic factors that I discussed earlier. So with that, it is recommended that the board choose option 1 or 2 as far as the fiberglass or the plaster, and approve the technical specs. I have both specs for both options in there, and authorize the general manager to start the RFP process.
Okay, and one thing that we need to make sure the board notices, that in your packet there was a notice from the health district saying we will fix the pool now. It's not a maybe.